It's one of those things where all the teams with a small roster, like us, will argue for like, oh, you should set the roster first and then ban so that I can ban out your player, you know? Before, it was you should set your roster first, then we ban, and they've only recently changed it. And I think it's pretty brain dead because I really want to like ban out certain players, you know? If Hanbin comes in for Falcons, then I should be able to ban Sigma.
Like that region's been excluded for such a long time that it's actually at the point where LGD could be a bit weaker than people are expecting. I don't know if any of you guys have heard anything.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had like LGD as like third in the overall tournament, but I feel like that's such a stretch for the given the circumstances.
Yeah. I think the break will really hurt them. So I'm really interested to see how that team shapes up at the LAN.
Like hero bans also significantly.
It hurts them too. Yeah. Because they have really quite one tricky players.
Because you talked about how you've sort of now you're working harder, you're trying to rebound from a disappointment. One thing that's sort of come up, I guess, in a lot of conversations recently is like NA culture. Do you feel that some of the reason you underperformed at Dallas was because of the limitation of how good your practice can be in America? Hello everyone, welcome to episode 25 of Uncoachable. We are joined by Casores today, and we actually have a very special opportunity because of when we are recording this podcast. We're recording it on Monday, which means it is 2 days before the England-Netherlands match, which gives us a chance to put our predictions on the record and see if it turns out if we can see the future or not. So Chris, predictions for Wednesday?
2-0 England.
Casores?
I'm going to go 2-1 Netherlands. We haven't been playing a good tournament, but neither has England. So, you know, best of the worst.
Unbeaten, baby. Won our group. You guys finished third. Got the easiest draw. Coming home.
Oh, there you go.
Hunter?
Sometimes you have to luck out, and we lucked out into England.
I got nothing for you. I've got no Preds. I guess I'll back the English here, you know, just because like I'm not going to get caught back in gas country.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be
famous.
It's going to be like
overlords.
I feel like it's going to be an awful game. It's going to be goalless, and it's going to be a penalty win for England.
Netherlands are too attacking for it to be goalless. I think the problem is we've played against cummy teams that like sit back, but Netherlands have actually tried to attack. But that's why we're going to score, because there's going to be gaps in that defensive there.
No, we are a cummy team and we attack. We're not.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally perfect for us. We don't have to park the bus because you won't be parking the bus. So we just counter-attack you and then boom.
What we'll do here is we'll probably just keep talking about football for about another hour and a half, and hopefully our producer can cut all of this out, and then we'll... So if you're watching this, you'll see a massive jump right now, and we'll all look about half a day older. But one of the biggest success stories in Europe was, of course, Greece's victory in 2004. But there is a person on this call right now who hates Greece, would never go to Greece even when it seems like the prime destination to go to. So I think that's probably a good place for us to start, because if we cast our minds back to the Dallas Major, we were pretty critical of a certain team's decision to not take ENCE to Ilios, and then later not take them to Esperanza and take them to Colo instead. So this is probably your chance now, Casores, to defend the Busan pick.
So I think going into the Dallas Major, I think a lot of teams and people had this wrong, that we were uncomfortable in the Mauga comp. Actually, going into it, I felt like our Mauga comp was actually our strongest comp. At the LAN itself, we absolutely sucked at the comp, right? So in hindsight, definitely not true. But the reason we both drafted Busan is because two of the maps are dive, right? You got Downtown, which is a great dive map for Anna Winston. And then you've got Sanctuary, which infamously is like a really good ball map. It's also a good sig map, but you could play both, right? And I think the ball into the Lucio Bap sig is quite good. We just made some piloting errors right there. But I think we were really confident, especially at the time, that Mauga can beat the Sigma if you play correctly, especially on a map like Busan Mecha Base. In hindsight 2020, maybe, you know, it's all wrong, and Ilios would have been the better pick. But I think at the time, And just in general, like historically, our Busan has been really, really good. So we were confident on Busan. We knew, 2 of those maps are still dive maps. So the ideology of, we're scared to take the dive against ENCE just isn't there because we're still playing dive. I think the fatal flaw and what we've worked on since then a lot as well has been like how to play Mauga into the SIG comp, because we were most confident on the Mauga comp. And I think now too you see SSG and ENCE more pivoting to the Mauga, because I feel like a well-played Mauga comp should beat a well-played Sigma comp. We just weren't able to do that against ENCE.
Was the discussion about ENCE, or was it more so versus SSG that this pick was so egregious? Am I
Oh no, we played ENCE. We didn't play SSG at Dallas.
They didn't reach that stage.
We didn't even play them.
The thing is,
was this a separate drafting drama? Because I thought it was a map choice.
Yeah, we're talking about Ilios and why I picked Busan.
Yeah, because they had got to choose map 1 and they chose Busan over Ilios. That's why we were flaming them.
Wasn't the whole issue though that it's more about the enemy team's weakness than your weakness? Like you're addressing this here about how you guys are solid on Busan. But the thing about you guys is that everyone knows you're solid everywhere, Like you're a team that can always pretty much pick everything, You're essentially a KR level roster where you can do a bit of everything, compared to the European teams that are sort of hampered by the fact that they're more or less stylistic one tricks. Sure, they can play a bit of everything, but they can't quite reach the KR level on everything. So a lot of your defense there was the fact that you guys are good at Busan, and it's like, yeah, but you guys are actually good at every map. Whereas a team like ENCE, maybe they're going to struggle when their off tank player can't do something. So I think that was more the essence of why you were getting crucified.
We actually played the dive comp a lot into like just the Rhine comps or just Diva comps as well, which we thought ENCE was gonna play if we went Busan. And we actually had a pretty bad win rate because I think our strength is like hit scan, right? But I think Echo Tracer isn't really our strength. And I think that's really good into those Diva comps, like a well-oiled like Brigana, Echo Tracer, Winston. I feel like the Brigana like Ash Tracer or Ash Echo isn't as good into a good Diva comp. So we kind of expected like Diva or Ram comp. And I feel like Echo could really abuse that. But you also need Tracer on Ilios, right? So I think in general, like Merit is probably the best hit scan in the world, right? Or at least top 3, I think, unarguably. And I don't think he's as good at Tracer, right?
We said that. We might have said that on this podcast before.
We piloted away from it because I don't think it's just that we're strong on Busan. I think Echo Tracer is also our weakness. And I think into Diva comps, I think it's a lot tougher of a sell. Like Gibraltar, of course, we went there because hit scan's broken on Gibraltar, right? You play Brigana hit scan. But I think on Ilios, yeah, you can make Ash work, but Ash Tracer isn't as good into Diva. So we did think about Ilios, and maybe in hindsight, it's easy for you guys to flame us. But I will say that Busan, we went up 99-0 on Sanctuary, and then we just didn't use ults for like 3 fights in a row. All right. So we also just gave the map away after getting a good matchup for us. I think Ilios, it's not as much of a free win as we're thinking it is, especially if we're going to play the way we played on Busan.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, Busan was hella fucking close. I just felt like if you were like to get a behind the scenes camera into the ENCE changing room and you like saw their reactions the second they saw Busan was map form, they're probably so much happier. They were probably like dreading Ilios, But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like obviously, if you win one more team fight in Sanctuary, then no one criticizes your decision. So it's kind of it's the way coaching goes.
I think probably the bigger like critic you could be is like the Colosseo pick we made, and it really goes back to just us overrating like our ability to play Mauga into the SIG. I think it's like a 60-40 matchup for the Mauga team, but I think especially your like engages have to be really clean. And I thought we just looked like a mess on that map. Let's be honest. Like we rewatched it just to torture ourselves. Like it was so bad.
Do you think, as of now, based on scrims on Colo, do you think Mauga can beat Sig?
Yeah, I still believe so. I think I still believe it's not like a free win, of course, but I think Mauga, like a good Mauga team, should beat a good Sig team.
Really?
Let's say there were no bans, right? And you know, we'll get into the bans later, I imagine. I think if you play the Mauga comp correctly, you should beat the Sig team.
Yeah. See, I kind of disagree, actually. I feel like our meta read right now is that like some maps, it's really hard to make Mauga work. Like on KOF, Flashpoint, Mauga, you're 100% right in what you're saying. Like a good Mauga team destroys a good Sigma team like they did against us. But my feeling is that there was like certain maps. This is actually why, like, when we had our nice little Peps game, once we started to like draft maps which were difficult for Mauga, Peps basically just like took a shit all over their keyboard because they were just like, these maps are actually so difficult to find a way. Like Hollywood, Colosseo, I think are actually incredibly difficult to beat like the Sigma comp. But maybe we'll find out at the Esports World Cup when we draft Colo in here, you know? Maybe we'll see.
No, I do feel like on some maps it's like closer to 50-50, but I really feel like if you're playing against like Falcons on Colo, it feels different than playing against us at the Esports World Cup, you know? Like it depends on what DPS you draft, right? But I think, especially with some of the options open, I think it's really doable. But it's not a free win, and I think, especially with bans, it's also pretty easy to target those away now. You know, like
yeah.
I think it's a completely different game when we're scrimming these days, at least.
Was there much? What was the reaction like after the team? Like we saw a little bit of behind the scenes, but we kind of only saw in like the video Toronto made for sort of documentary of the event. But we only really saw the immediate aftermath. What's it been like in the team? Because obviously this is probably your most disappointing result by a large margin so far.
Yeah, of course. Like we came in, I wouldn't say we were, confident to beat the Korean team, but we thought we could at least go even with them, at least take maps off them. And then we thought we should beat EU because of the reasons, Max here stated about like us being so flexible and you guys basically being one tricks. And I think if you're a team that can't abuse the one trick teams, you can never be the best, right? Like we saw it with Atlanta last year. We kind of had like a same pitfall, against one certain comp. I think after it really took us to like a motivation, we know like our results were way below par, and I think everybody agrees we can do better. I think after we've just been practicing insanely hard, like every day we're reviewing a lot more. I was late to this podcast because we were reviewing. I think that plus bans, plus, last year Mayhem kind of had the same experience where they completely flopped. Well, not completely flopped. They lost the mid-season madness, right? They didn't do great. And they took that as motivation. They changed a lot of stuff up, and they eventually won. So I think a lot of the Mayhem part of our team is seeing it in the same way where, maybe losing feels like shit, but in the long term, this should help us, and we should learn a lot from it.
Do you see the Esports World Cup as the big one? Do you think of that higher than Stockholm? Like, is that like the biggest event of the year for you?
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think so. I think Stockholm is such an unknown, like if they just cap a like skin and don't advertise it and, only 25% of the proceeds, it's probably going to be some similar, like prize pool maybe a little bit higher. I think with the big prize pool plus how near like the last tournament it is, we're really feeling like do or die for this tournament, right? I think everybody's like Esports World Cup, all these teams are getting signed for it. There's more teams, more Korean teams will be there. Team China will be there. So if the West sucks, like if we suck, then it's basically cemented that Korea and in turn also Asia in general is just the best. So I feel like this is probably the biggest, definitely the biggest tournament of the year. I think everybody feels that way. Like the prize pool was much bigger, and the timing as well. It's just after Dallas, so everybody has hatred. Stockholm is so far away, you know? It feels like an island.
Well, for a lot of these teams, also, like, if obviously for like SSG in Toronto, they very much expect to be at Stockholm. But for a lot of these teams, there is no guarantee they get to Stockholm. Like, even a lot of the Korean teams, like, even if I'm Zeta Division, right, I actually don't look at Stockholm like, oh, I'll definitely be there. Like, this is the event that they have guaranteed qualification for and their chance to really prove their worth, as it were. Have you found since... Because you talked about how you've sort of now you're working harder, you're trying to rebound from the disappointment. One thing that's sort of come up, I guess, in a lot of conversations recently is like NA culture. Do you feel that some of the reason you underperformed at Dallas was because of the limitation of how good your practice can be in America?
I think at the time, actually, M80 was a pretty good scrim partner. I think before, you know, they went this full direction, where, you know, Pelican Happy left, they didn't retire, Hawk retired, and they're basically dead now. They don't scrim anymore as well. So I feel like they were a pretty good scrim partner. And we would scrim M80 and we'd scrim one European team. I think we weren't dead in the water, you know, scrim-wise. I feel like now it's a lot worse. We only scrim European teams now because M80 does a scrim, and Timeless is, I feel like they're still pretty far below like where they need to be. I think they're working hard. Like a lot of people are like, oh, NA players don't work hard. I think that's just the old like guard that just like is there still for the money, you know. Like a lot of the players that are coming back are just still just better. I think I was watching the last episode. I think Unter said something similar. But I full-heartedly agree that it's just the old guard that doesn't have the motivation anymore, but it's still just better than all the new players. I think that's where the culture is bad. But I think before, actually, it didn't hinder us that much. And also, Falcons and Crazy Raccoon came to NA pretty early. Like, we were scrimming Falcons for, like, 2 weeks. And we were Malga mirroring them, like, a lot. So that's where, like, our confidence in the Malga comp came from a lot of the time, you know? Like they brought it over and we adopted it. Like we were playing it before they even came over, and then we adopted it more as we were scrimming them. So maybe in a way that like gaslit us away from like how to beat the European teams. But I also think it was just up to us, right? Like I think 2 matches in a day was rough, especially in the way we went out against Crazy Raccoons, and we just didn't make the right adaptations, and we didn't play well in the match against ENCE. But I think overall, as for scrim quality, it's gotten worse, to be honest. Like it's so much worse now. We just scrim EU teams now. I think Team Peps, VP are both better than Timeless, and that's the 3rd NA seed, right? And you've got like the 3rd and 4th EU seed, just like giving us a challenge in scrims, while any NA team right now is just there's just no challenge. You know, like when Pelican and Happy were in the seed, ranked was so much better as well. Because they would just grind. They'd be 99% of the time just playing ranked. I mean, Pelican was spamming fair for like the last 2 months, which my players hated, but at least he was good. You know?
I mean, he was right too.
He was right.
He was right.
It's really hard to argue with
him. They were
now.
playing that stuff so bad too, because we won against them every time when they played fair. And then as soon as like people learn how to like combo, like Malga with fair properly, like fair is insane right now. I mean. There's a patch tomorrow, I think.
Nerfed tomorrow. It's
so
okay,
probably Fair's getting nerfed. If Fair's not getting nerfed, I don't know anymore, man.
Yeah.
If you're like actually happy with the quality of scrims that you had leading into the event, do you have like this, you know, level of doubt in the back of your mind that like if things have only gotten worse for you by way of practice, and like all of your issues stemmed from like actual performance at the event? I mean, I feel like it's ridiculous to claim that you've got a roster that has issues with match day performance. Maybe you've got like a player at worst that has that issue because, you know, the rest of your roster is basically like seasoned champions, more or less. But are you concerned about how you guys are going to perform when it actually matters? Because it seems like that was the real problem at the end of the day. You know, like if it all comes down to like, oh, we played shit when the lane actually came around, our practice was good, we were flexible. Like, is that your biggest concern, that, you know, you're actually just going to turn up to the event and flop?
Yeah, I think a lot of our players were actually overrating like our scrim performance. I look back at it. Well, I even looked at it before the LAN, but we actually had like a 50% win rate against SSG and only a 60% against ENCE. and the match against ENCE was a dogfight. So I feel like our scrim performance wasn't like as highly rated. Like we did good against the Korean teams, but everybody does good against the Korean team that scrims, right? Like I think in general, there's a couple things we're doing differently now, but I definitely don't think it's because I have a team of chokers that we lost. Obviously, we don't have chokers. Maybe, Vega, newcomer, is still a little bit nervous on match day, but I think now he has some LAN experience under his belt. It's gotten a lot better, I think. Honestly, when we were in Dallas, we just put too much pressure on ourselves, and now that pressure is off, right? Like I think a lot of people were saying like we're favorites at Dallas, which anybody in the scene knows that the Korean teams were favored. I think against the Europeans we're definitely favored, but now we've already lost to the Europeans anyway, right? So I think the pressure is just off, and I think what I'm trying to do is up the pressure in scrims now and like flame mistakes more and actually be way harder on them, and then in the tournament itself actually just way more relaxed mindset, right? Like I think if the players are like playing not to lose, it's so bad actually. I think a big issue I found at Dallas for us is just we were so scared to lose. Like if you want to like pull up an example, watch our first point defense Midtown against ENCE in the tournament. It was so awful. We just left like Ham on like an island trying to deal with a ram by himself without pressuring, and everybody was just running away trying not to die. It was actually like really ugly to watch. I think rather than like nervous or anything, we're just playing not to lose.
Yeah, I feel like maybe one thing that Toronto does have is like, I think based on scrim results, I don't think Toronto like, I predicted ENCE to beat you when you guys like were going up against each other. We were watching, I thought, yeah, I think ENCE will win this because I don't know, I felt like ENCE were better, but it was pretty close, right? Like I think that like historically,
if you just look at this clip, like everybody's just in the room. Ham is the only one trying to hold space. He just dies, because he has no backup, right? It's not how you play Overwatch. But you gotta hold pressure and be in there with the sig comp. So I think that was like a big issue. It's just we weren't holding space. We were just playing not to lose. I think like a big emphasis I've had, and I think you said this, Christopher. Now in scrims we're running it down like idiots, right? It's true, like, but it's because I think it's easier to at a tournament go more passive rather than suddenly turn it up a notch and go like really aggressive. I feel like a passive team, it's very hard to go aggressive, and an aggressive team is pretty easy to turn it down a little bit. So sometimes overdoing it is better than underdoing it.
Certain type of comps are harder to play on LAN too, like one thing that we always felt on London was if we could play against a dive team and have a 50% win rate in scrims in tournaments, we're actually going to win. Because actually our comp is fundamentally more simple to play, like in terms of like when we lost to EXO, we played dive, and even though our team has no chokers on it, we effectively choked the game because all of a sudden under pressure, like I have to find the timing to engage. I have to find like timings to play wide. When we were playing like our rank comp, fundamentally it was mainly just stand somewhere near the point, and then all you had to do was like mechanically hit your shots, and we all were so well drilled in terms of what to do. So I think there's an element of like the Mauga comp, for example, you have to be pretty fucking aggressive, like, and you have to be like, if you're 1 second slow and your Mauga just loses 200 HP, the comp is fucked, And I think that stuff like that is like, actually, we felt the same sometimes where we felt like certain comps, we would have it like, when we lost to EXO, our scrim rate on dive was really high. Like everybody knew like our dive was good. We went to officials and it was like, fuck, we're just exactly what you're saying. We're just playing not to lose. We're playing a little bit too passive. Because the actual things that you need to do to make these kind of like these like Mauga comps or these dive comps or these, I guess, like more aggressive comps where you have to find a timing to go and you can't just wait and counter what the enemy team to do. So there's like a different skill in terms of like translating that into official. I
feel like for me, that's not so much of a comp issue, it's more of a comfortability issue. Right, like some teams will feel like really comfortable on dive, and they'll always perform well on it.
That's
no matter what. And I think because you guys are so comfortable on the BAP comps, I think going to dive, it makes it feel like it's a comp thing. I feel like it's just a player thing. Like my players are so much more comfortable on this. Like I'm sure if Ham's on Winston at Dallas, he'd feel way more comfortable than on Mauga.
Yeah.
But in a scrim situation, it feels like easier, you know, to play things you're uncomfortable on. It gets exemplified by being like in a tournament setting. Just like something you haven't played before in like a high pressure situation. It's like when players play comp and they're like practicing a new character and then they're about to lose or win and they swap back to their comfort character, you know? It's always like that where players just play better when they're confident in like high stakes situations. And if you're playing Mauga for the first time in a tournament, it's tough, and it's same for you guys. If you play dive when you're not as comfortable on it as a different comp, I feel like that matters so much.
Yeah.
So for you guys specifically, maybe that's the BAP comp, but I think for us it was really like a player issue where the players were playing something they might not have been as comfortable on, and that like exemplified really hard. What's going on there, Max? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, my dog started popping off because my uncle showed up, and I just cannot hook my camera up anymore. So I don't know what to tell you.
No, that's good like that. Just keep your arms there for the rest of the
Just keep my arms here for the rest of the pod, and we'll be fine.
Just a bit steadier, please, mate.
We're having some technical difficulties.
Well, do you think that's essentially like when you look back at it on like at Dallas and you see someone on Mauga and maybe Sugarfree on Genji as well, or maybe two of the players who felt like when we watch you guys in scrims or in previous tournaments, someone and Sugarfree are normally big fundamental parts of your success, whereas it felt like a pretty quiet land from them, particularly on Nose Heroes and like maybe the Pharaoh as well, compared to like Winston Trace.
I was watching your guys' podcast. I thought it was such a brain dead take that Lenny is like not comfortable on Genji. Like that guy's been playing Genji since he was like 12 years old in tournaments. Like Genji is probably like in the top 2 of his most comfortable characters.
Who said it?
It was probably
I think it was you, Chris. You were like, "Oh, Sugarfree is not comfortable on Genji."
No, I don't think that was me.
So I think that's true for Ham. I think that's true for someone, but I think that's definitely not true for. I think it's mostly true for the Mauga, and I also think the biggest key to our team is making Merit feel free, and just letting him shoot. I think against the Sigma comp specifically, hit scan's a pretty bad matchup.
Agreed.
Right? It's hard to make hit scan work against the Sigma. So I think those are like the 2 big pitfalls. Like Merrick couldn't carry because there's a Sigma shield in his face the whole game. And Ham was not as comfortable on Mauga as other characters, right? So I think those are probably the 2 biggest pitfalls. Like our, Korean superstar hit scan, who's probably the best hit scan in the world, couldn't think heads.
Well, you're not worried that will still be the same at the Esports World Cup then?
Well, I think
because the matchups, Merit still has the problem, right? If he's playing into Sigma.
Yeah. I think we're doing things in the matchup now where it's a little bit different, and I also think hero bans come in clutch there because I think the Sigma comp is very reliant on like 4 characters that you have to play, right? So you ban any 4 of those, the Sigma comp kind of gets screwed, and Sigma is also only good on a few maps. So I think between hero bans plus some changes we made, I think the matchup's a lot better. But at the same time, there's a new patch coming too, right? So maybe Mauga will get dumpstered, and then everybody will have to readjust too. I think Mauga's still strong. Sigma's still good on some maps against Mauga, but with all the variables now, and I feel like the map pool is actually really dive favored. They've kind of fucked over Europe and a little bit NA with how many dive maps are in the pool now, especially on like hybrid. There's like Eichenwald and Hollywood now, so you can't just rely on just playing Rush. I think it's going to be really hard because you kind of got screwed on the map pool.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
He'll be all right.
That's what you said last time.
People have told me that Rush can't work on many places before where it's worked.
Should we talk a little bit about the Esports World Cup and by a little bit, I mean a lot.
A lot.
So
the majority of the episode.
I guess the things we should probably start with establishing is exactly what is going to happen, because everything's been in flux a little bit in terms of the rule set and the changing, and not a lot's been officially announced, but I think we'll have... Right now it's an exclusive. By the time we release this,
it's probably like 2 weeks after the Esports World Cup's happened, you know?
you guys now will have, just listening to this, would have watched the Esports World Cup 3 years ago at this point, so you can reflect back on our takes. But I guess the headline news is probably the ban system, right? So do you want to talk us through it, Chris? Because you've probably got you've been the one actually scrimming it and practicing it, so you have like the inside track on exactly how it goes.
Yeah, so we got hero bans confirmed a few weeks ago, and then there's been like a few iterations, but I'm fairly sure what we have right now is like the final announcement of hero bans. Basically what it is going to be is each team is going to get to ban one hero, and the ban works globally. So if I ban Lucio, Cass also can't pick Lucio. And there is a feature in which is if I ban a support, you can't ban a support. So you have to ban a DPS or tank, which adds like a additional strategy. If you ban a hero once in a series, you cannot ban it again for the rest of the series, but your opponent can. So if I ban Lucio map 1, Cass is allowed to ban it from 2 through 7. And the loser will pick the map. The loser will then pick if they want to ban first or second, which is also interesting because I think there is like strategical advantages to both. And one thing that is you will select your roster after the ban goes through. So you cannot like inherently target ban one-trick players, for example.
Which they changed recently, which is very controversial. But
I mean, there was a few arguments. We can
get into that later.
Yeah, Rush was trying to argue it, but as always, Rush really doesn't have a logical.
It's one of those things where all the teams with a small roster, like us, will argue for like, oh, you should set the roster first and then ban so that I can ban out your player. You know, I can finally ban out Backbone Sim. Screw that guy, all right? And then you know the teams with larger rosters all wanted the bans to be before the roster is set, which is this iteration going in now. I think people are, you know, arguing about it still because they've changed it so much. Like before, it was you should set your roster first, then we ban, and they've only recently changed it. And I think it's pretty brain dead because I really want to like ban out certain players. You know, if Hanbin comes in for Falcons, then I should be able to ban Sigma, right? But I can't do that because I don't know if Hanbin will be in or not. So I feel like it's kind of taking away from where League of Legends is with like bans, right? Where certain like players come in and you know they have a signature hero and you screw that player over, like you ban Appa Ziggs, right? I don't know if you guys follow League of Legends, but that guy's basically a Ziggs one trick. So I can ban that guy. But if I didn't know he was playing, I couldn't ban his character. So I feel like it almost becomes like a nod where you're like, oh yeah, that guy is so good on that certain character. Like Backbone's so good on Sim that I got to ban that out. But with this change, I can't really do that. So it makes for more like general bans, right? I'm like, maybe Backbone will come in, but probably not. So I should just go for another support ban.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like, okay, one thing that we can both admit, because me and Cass were arguing different sides here. From what I understand, you and Danny were actually whispering in the right people's ears in Dallas to get this change going. That's what I heard. You were saying to them when you had, well, it's good to target ban people. So you guys were planting the seeds early, but thankfully my propaganda mission on the other side was able to be successful.
Whoa,
I mean, we can both admit this, okay? If you had a 6-man roster, you would want the rule to be the opposite, right? And if I had a 5-man roster, I would want to be the rule. So 99% of our arguments are not based on what we think the rule should be. It's based on what favors us, right? And this is the problem that we've said in Overwatch League, right? Like teams would just act like a trade union for their cause, you know? They would only like, they wouldn't try to do for the greater good. It's, this rule, Albert will rule book if his opponent does something and then would not complain about the same, like if it was his team, you know?
Yeah, I mean, every team wants to win, right?
That's it, right?
I will say at Dallas, they were talking to every team, right? About how they should do bans because it was already kind of known then. I think they talked to every team about how they should do bans. So they just asked us, should it be before or after? We should. Yeah, of course it should be the roster should be locked before, because then I can, you know, ban these pesky players. They're one trick.
Because this is the thing, though, right? Because if we want to talk about
I want to ban Alari. What the hell, man? Ban this guy out.
Yeah, you want to talk about for the greater good. I don't see how your system makes, like, the reason we're doing hero bans is fundamentally to make more people, or to attempt to make the game more interesting, right? Like less mirror matchups, more diverse strategy. I don't see how the product of Overwatch benefits if players like Hanbin, Backbone, whatever, are actually forced to retire or they don't play. Like, I don't see how. Oh, I'm so glad Hanbin's not playing. You can make an argument, but the same argument that Rush was making, that client was like, oh yeah, well, you should learn how to play more than one heroes. But it's like, well, yeah, okay, from a competitive viewpoint, I understand. But I don't think this rule was because there was too many one tricks in the game. I think actually these one trick specialist players have actually been pretty exciting for the game to watch. And I think the reason we're doing hero bans is not to add this like competitive, like let's make teams more flexible. It's actually to make it so their teams play more comps, you know? And I feel like this argument became one of like, people lost sight of why hero bans came in, because the reason hero bans is in is because people find Overwatch not super entertaining to watch, presumably. And I think when people see like amalgam error across like 5 maps, that's something that hero bans will change in theory. So I don't know. I felt like I'm biased, you're biased, but I felt like the argument from like Gator was saying, Gator's a fucking idiot. He says, I thought the reason hero bans was in was to make it so people can't one trick. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, pal? Like, on what planet was that the reason hero bans came in? Because Esports World Cup was like, I'm sick of these one trick players. That's what's killing Overwatch, you know? There's too many sim-only players in the league. So I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, but I also think your brain dead.
When I was listening to you explain the bans, if I'm a viewer, I'm so confused about what's going on with the bans. I think the best version of bans is like simple, right? Like this team plays that comp, so we ban this character, right? And I feel like with all the separate rules that have come in, with like you can't ban the same role. I kind of like that the mirrored stuff is there. Like if we ban Lucio, you also can't ban. I think that's a really good rule. I think that's really fucking good, and that both teams can do it, which we also had to fight for to change. But you know, that got changed. And then also, you know, you don't know who's playing yet before you ban. I feel like it becomes a little, I feel like a simpler system like they had before makes a lot more sense to me, right? Where Jake on the analyst desk can explain, you can
still do the same thing. You can still do the same things. You can still do the same things. If you know it's a map that SSG always plays sim on, and oh fuck, they're always so good at sim because it's fucking, I don't know, whatever map. Gibraltar. Then you still ban sim, and then they can't even put backbone in. Like, fuck, we can't put backbone in. We can't do our sim stuff. We're gonna have to do something else that we don't normally do on Gibraltar.
Yeah, there's roundabout ways, but how are you going to explain that to the viewer, you know?
No, but come on, Cass, okay, live in the real world. Let's not act like the difference between roster selection before or after is like, Jake, I can't explain. This is too complicated. It's literally the most simple change. The whole ban structure is the same. Oh, but they have to choose their roster before the ban or after. Like, okay, the viewers aren't that fucking dumb. Like, that change is not complicated at all. I think what you said is actually a really good point, though. And maybe this can take us away from our hatred and this can unite us as friends. Because I think that this ban system is pretty complex, right? I think that, like, there is maps where, like, we will ban, like, we very rarely ban Mercy, but we'll ban a support which doesn't make sense because we're basically saying, please don't ban our supports, right? We don't want you to ban Lucio.
Here, just protect banning. I think it's interesting. You know, but that's another loop away thing. For the first iteration of bans, it's pretty tough to make work. I think the thing why, you know, a lot of the teams are irked is because they change it again, right? It was like before, what they told all the teams is like you had the, you know, roster lock first, then the bans. So I imagine like a couple teams might have added more players, right? If they knew
that's code, that's actual code. Players. Not happening, dude.
But
you had fucking
weeks. Changed,
no, dude.
The
reason people are upset is because the rules changed that didn't favor
players. Because someone like Zeta Division add a one trick like a Fearless or something, and then they have Fearless and Bernard, which would be negatively impacted by this change in rules, right? Or by the previous rule set where you had to select roster first. Because you see Fearless is in, but they added that player thinking that was a worse rule set for those players. So they added players anyway.
Yeah.
All these teams added players, even though it would have been worse in theory to add players.
I don't know.
Maybe they knew more than I knew.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the cast rule, even then, like players like Fearless, Hambin, like they actually like lose their jobs in this new system, you know. So what you're actually doing is like trying to like kill players here, you know, for the greater good of Toronto.
I think Fearless and Hambin would both be fine. They don't just play one character. They
but I mean, I don't know. I think Fearless.
If you ban Winston against Fearless, he just plays Doom.
No, but like that's like if you cut someone's hero pool in half with a ban, that actually is 100% a reason to not play them. Like his playtime would get
other way is the same, right? Where they had like Bernard, he also plays just 2 or 3 characters. You know, they're screwed either way with hero bans, I think.
I know this is like really noisy section of the podcast, but there was something you guys were talking about before, where apart from Gator being a client for saying that it's about one tricks or whatever, Gator, you are a client for sure. Wouldn't want to catch you publicly arguing for anything. But I will say that, like, you know, they said like with the addition of bans, they want to add like a degree of strategic depth, and it kind of sucks that it's like very confusing from a viewer's standpoint. But I don't think the ban format matters from a viewer's point, as long as the people on the desk or whatever at the broadcast can explain it, because they're gonna walk you through this in the moment, and assuming they have someone in the know on the desk, they'll see the bans in the moment and they'll be able to identify what's going on. Is this a proactive ban to stop the enemy team from doing something, or is it a defensive ban to protect something for your own team? You know, I think that it should be really, really clear the second it happens what's going on, and the analyst on broadcast should be able to explain that very clearly. So I think even though it's a bit of a confusing system, especially when the rule set keeps chopping and changing, it's like these aren't things that are announced to the public. This isn't like adding to confusion for viewers. I think from the viewer's standpoint, at the end of the day, it'll actually be very, very clear when the tournament does come around. And also just for one tricks, you know, for the sliver of what's like actually correct in what Gator's saying, I think that like any ban system, you know, it's going to like increase the level of variety in the broadcast, right? Like there's going to be a bunch of different heroes and a bunch of different comps. If there was something that was being one-tricked as the meta at the time, that would have been completely upset by the system. So I think, you know, less about one-trick players and more just about the fact that it's going to introduce like significant compositional diversity throughout the course of the tournament as a result. So, you know, Gator was like, you know, he's like 50% correct, but unfortunately he's American, so he can't quite get the point across in a way that makes any sense.
I think we can all agree that the point of hero bans is to make it more fun for the viewer and improve comp diversity. And I think for me, that's kind of happening. Like whenever I'm scrimming, I've seen a lot of different comps. So whatever iteration it is, like I feel like the comp diversity is pretty high. So I like the idea of hero bans, especially for right now. It's like so novel and new. Maybe in like 3 months I'll hate it because I'm a hater, but right now it feels fun. I was kind of curious. What do you guys think about like protective banning versus second banning? So whether you want first ban or second ban, I think that's one of the things they've made pretty interesting. And I think as like Jake on the analyst desk, he used to like translate this really well to the viewer. Like, oh, SSG has banned Kiri. This is not necessarily because they don't want the enemy team to play Kiri, but it's because they want to protect Lucio. You know, like that. Yeah. And I think that's pretty interesting to me. And I want to hear your guys' take on that.
I think. Oh, you go, Max.
I mean, I think that having the first ban is just like disproportionately powerful. No, like the fact that you can defensively ban at all means that you have this like enormous advantage because you have like complete control over whether your most important piece can be screwed out of the map or not. I'd say that that's like very, very, very powerful. The fact that there is potential to do this defensive banning is like, I think it puts a little bit too much weight on the team that's doing the first ban. But I guess if it's like an advantage, if you know you lose a map and then you get the protective ban for the next one, then it's like a little bit of a loser's advantage, which I think is kind of fair in a drawn out series. So not a bad change, but I definitely think having the first ban is like really important.
You can 2 for 1 it in theory as well. Like if you can get it to line up right, you can actually protect the hero you want to protect, but also take something useful away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like that a potential double hit. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it also the same map ban system or the map pick system, that we had in Dallas, where loser gets to pick from any map in the pool as well? So loser's pick is now, I get to pick for map and I get to pick for ban, so it's actually super powerful.
In theory, Frios should be even less common, or like that should, like you should, if you can pick a map and like do the first ban, I think it should be a big advantage. I mean, one thing I will say is I feel like, I don't know how it is for you in scrims, I feel like 90% of the time in scrims, teams are selecting first ban when they lose at the moment in scrims. But my feeling is that like once you get past like map like 3 and 4, I actually think second ban is an advantage because there isn't anything like massively like to protect. And I actually think second ban is quite undervalued by teams. I think that being able to see, like, you target ban me, I kind of get a read of what comp you want to play, and then I can make the adjustment as long as you can do it in time. I actually think, so for me, what I'm doing in some scrims is I'm banning like first, most, and then if we get to like map 6, I'll like choose second ban because I don't think there's like an obvious like ban. But I would say that probably like 80% of the time first ban feels stronger than second ban in this current system.
I actually feel like kind of I agree that first ban is in most scenarios more strong, but I feel like later in the series actually first ban becomes more OP because some things will already have been banned. Like let's say we want to play dive, right? And on the first map, there's a couple enablers for dive. Like you have Ana and Winston, which are like the biggest ones, right? For the dive against a lot of the teams, what the teams are playing. So you have Ana and Winston both. So let's say I protect ban a support, you can still ban Winston. But like later in the series, you guys will have already banned Ana. So then I only need to protect Winston so I can play Ana Winston. So I actually feel like later in the series, protect banning certain picks becomes more OP because all the other enablers will have already been banned earlier. So I actually feel like early on in series, you have things prepped, right? Like you'll be like, oh, Busan is the first map we know this. We've prepped this ban, and then we know they're gonna ban that. So we want to play this comp. But I feel like later in the series it becomes more chaotic where several things have already been banned. So you want to protect ban your like one enabler that's still unbanned by the enemy team, right? So we've been playing a lot of dive and scrims because it's a pretty dive heavy map pool, and the patch is gonna change anyway. Like a lot of the time, like Ilios is first map, right? We'll like go that map, you know, and there's so many comps that there's so many comps that are like there's so many bans still open that'll fuck dive, right? You ban Winston, yeah, you have to play like some different version of dive where you just don't play dive. You ban Ana, okay, now you play Lucio, Kiri, Winston, but that also has its counters that actually aren't dive, you know? Like Mauga, for example, is pretty good into Lucio, Kiri, Winston. So it becomes like in these first maps, it becomes like the early ban actually doesn't matter that much because there's a couple enablers, but later on, those enablers will have already been banned. So then first ban and protect one thing becomes really strong. I feel like for your case, Chris, it's like you guys just want to protect Lucio Bap the whole series, you know? And just play it anywhere you can. So you always want a first ban support. But I feel like for the more flexible teams and maybe Korean teams too, I feel like second ban early on is really good. And then first ban later on becomes really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you ever get to map 5 or 6 in a series, then both teams have probably like had their choice of first ban. So actually for us, once we get to like, you're right in what we're saying. Like obviously we prefer to play Lucio Bap a lot. That's not that big of a league. But by the time we get to map 6, it's actually like they will have already been banned. Like the opponent, like every single series we play at Esports World Cup, we are going to get Lucio banned once. Like that's a fact. Like nobody's ever going to let that go through the whole time. So for us, once we get to the point where our supports no longer need protecting, I almost feel like in a lot of ways, I'd rather you show your hand and then I'll just counter what you're doing on top of that. Obviously, in a world in which like Lucio or Bap are still untouched, then in theory, I'm always going to grab first ban to protect it for as long as I can. I think there's also maybe something to argue that certain maps it's more important to protect than others. Like some maps I can almost, like, I don't know, we need to say like, you might almost want to like bait a Lucio, like if you're going to have to tank a Lucio ban, like get it in the nicest place possible. Some maps are so fucking tough without Lucio.
The good thing is you can always pick first ban, right? So I can always, like, if I lose a map, I pick first ban and I ban Lucio or Bap. And you'll be able to lose 2 maps per series at least. So, you know, and in the bracket stage too, the series are going to be longer. It's going to be all first to 4s, right? So there's a high chance that the whole damn pool is going to be banned at some point. There's like no more useful bans. Like at some point in our scrims too, maps, like map 6,
be a real weird map 7.
So hard to
you're like, you know? Oh, if we play this comp, then one of the counters, and then what they will counter that you're going like the bans. But I almost feel like in a way, like map 7 having no bans effectively is actually kind of nice too, because it's like you remember in League of Legends where you used to do the thing where if you went to map 5, it was blind pick, where like that's when you got that big fake ZVZ play where both of them like did Z. Stuff like that, I think it's almost kind of nice where you get to map 7, it's like, okay, you guys just play your best. Like the better team wins. We don't need to like have restrictions. I almost feel like in a way that's quite good too.
Pretty funny because in League of Legends now they're all talking about doing a fearless draft because there's so many characters now where the bans stay that have been banned in a previous map. So in essence, they actually
really?
4 bans in League of Legends. Yeah.
But I think, go on, Alex.
I was going to say, does this mean there's an argument then that actually you need to really try and map the series out? So like if you're a team that really wants Lucio, you actually want to, maybe you want to ban second early on to try and bait them into banning Lucio on, say, a map where you think, oh, we can, it's hard to win this map anyway for our comp or something, right? So if we lose Lucio on, say, Gibraltar, which we might lose anyway, fuck it, that's a fine map to lose Lucio on, we'll just tank it.
Yeah.
And then we have Lucio available for the other 6 potential maps.
Yeah, you want to save your like OP bans 100%.
Yeah, I think so. One thing I will say is that like it's what Max said, but I think it's so fucking important that the broadcast gets this right. Like there's two worlds that they do this, right? There's one world in which like a map finishes, we cut to a commercial break, we come back, and then it's like the casters are saying this map, Anna and Winston have been banned. And you think, oh great, that if they do that, then this hero ban system is just fucked, it's over. What we need is every single time there's those like 3 minutes where teams are picking maps and bans, the desk has to be on and they have to be updating it with cool little graphics and they have to be explaining it every single time. And if we just use because now like they'll go to a break and we're playing Havana now because maybe like the loser pick, it's like you don't need to like be there watching Moon chip like click Havana. But if the desk don't do that, where they don't sit and actively talk through the draft in each map, I think a huge part of this, that like strategical diversity gets lost on the viewers. Like I think it's so important that we walk through. We have a graphic where it says what's previously been banned, what's available to be banned. Oh, SSG banned this. They explain it. Like we have to have this part of the broadcast, or all of this is effectively for nothing.
I think as well, if you look at like other esports, that obviously like League and Dota are big examples of ones that do this with like a more robust ban system because there's more heroes. But also most games do this even with their map bans. Like if you watch CS, you'll get to watch the map draft go ahead, and you'll get the casters or the analyst desk talking through it of like, oh yeah, this is their perma ban, that one's gonna go. We'll see which way they go on map 3, maybe out of the third map. But we didn't get that for like the Face It playoffs was probably the big one where they had like the full broadcast and they did map bans and they didn't do any coverage for it. And I feel like this is an even bigger, an even more pivotal one. Because otherwise we'll get more comp diversity, but it'll just seem random to viewers and it won't make any sense if we're just like, there goes Anna, there goes Lucio, there goes Winston, there goes whatever.
No, Face It League playoffs didn't have bans, I think.
Map
bans, sorry. But they didn't do anything on broadcast. Like they showed it on the graphic of like, we're now going to Ilios, and then in the corner it would be this was for bans or whatever. But there was no discussion of it or active discussion of it, and I think both should be true. And it's like
because they have the first ban too, you can like show it. Oh, this team's banned this first, and they can like speculate about what the next team's.
They should show the teams as well.
Like a minute.
Like
yeah, they should show it.
If you were playing SSG and Toronto were playing each other, and Toronto banned Lucio, then I want a shot of Chris and the SSG team there discussing it of like, oh, okay, or like, does Astro fall over, or are they just like instant ban or something, you know?
I hope they would expect that.
but that's it's part of But it's part of because you see it on the Face It map ban system. If you ever watch the map ban draft live, sometimes you see the map bans because you get like a minute and a half per map ban, and sometimes it just goes boom, 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 boom. The teams know what they're banning. Everyone's just hitting their perma bans. But sometimes you'll see it go boom, 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 and then someone will just fucking freeze because they've been thrown off by they didn't expect the map ban. And that's super interesting then, because all of a sudden it means something unexpected has happened. And one of the teams is now potentially stumped and only has a minute and a half to figure out what is going on. And that'll be exactly true with the hero bans as well. Like all of a sudden, if SSG ban Reinhardt against Toronto need to be thinking, what's the fucking play here? What's going on? What are they trying to...
Reinhardt against us?
What are they trying to do? But you know what I mean? But that's maybe not the best example, but there'll be things that they can do that you won't expect. And I think the team's reaction, because that's what you get in Dota and League, right? you get to go onto the shot of the team and the coach sitting there discussing. And I think that's like the way to do it.
I don't know if you found this, Cass. It's so chokeable as a coach. Like, you can fucking choke so hard in this new format. You only get 90 seconds to choose your ban.
No, I think it scrims. It's like fine, you know, but I try to time myself. Like we try to do it faster.
Have you
because
fucking Crimson?
At LAN, I know they're gonna be screaming in my ear. We need your ban. We need it now.
Crimson, dude. Crimson takes 6 minutes to fucking pick a map and ban in scrims. It's unbelievable how fucking. Crimson doesn't understand that it's really important. Like, they discuss everything, and it's like ENCE, it's so bad. Peps were the same. I don't know. We scrimmed Peps earlier. It took them fucking ages to pick bans, and I'm like, even if you get the perfect ban, it probably is a good habit to just fucking like to get it quick, because honestly, 90 seconds when you're in an official in a knockout game, those 90 seconds are going to go so fucking fast. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And if another team throws you like a curveball and you've got to think on the fly. And then your team are like, why did you ban this? Psycho's always fucking flaming me. For every ban I do, Psycho's always like, fuck, you're a fucking client.
Yeah, we're already talking, like me and Danny, we're already talking like our system. And I think one thing that's really important is before the next map, you already kind of have a feeling whether you're going to win or lose, you know? So we're already talking about the next map bans, even in scrims, you know? Like, which you'd normally just start doing in officials. Like, we're like, oh, if we lose this, do you want to pick this and ban that? And then they're going to ban that, you know? So we're trying to do it before and then just present it to the team. And then the team has their opinion. But I feel like, you have to be fast. And we're trying to, like, do it in, like, 90 seconds at each time. Unless, like, you know, somebody's going to the bathroom or something, you know? Then we'll talk longer.
Is that how it's going to work then? You're going to get... Have they told you how it's going to work? Because in some games, they have it, like, a stopwatch system. So, like, for example, you might have 5 minutes total. So if you do your first ban in 10 seconds, you still have 4 minutes, 50 seconds left. So you can, like, sort of go quickly and leave yourself more time later on, or vice versa. You can even, like, milk time if you want to double check things. You have a bit more control, or is it just going to be, like, just 90 seconds, do your best?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's also, I was thinking about this. It's going to fucking kill, like, the breaks between maps are going to be so long now. Because... you're going to do a break, you're going to do 90 seconds, then players are going to get the keyboards and plug in. Like, you're actually going to get, like, test all their settings and stuff. It's actually going to be quite a long process.
That's why they need to update it in real time, because second ban is going to take a while too, right? So you get the first ban, then you have another 90 seconds. So they need to make sure that they get that first ban, like, on broadcast fast, and they start talking about the first ban, and then you start speculating about the second ban already, right? So they can fill all that time really easily by just talking about the ban. All right, we've been withholding Max from talking for like 2 minutes. Go, Max.
Have you had any conversations with the production about this? Because I do feel like, you know, we're talking about it now, but it's like I don't actually know whether they're intending to do like a broadcast spotlight on this pick ban system, you know?
No,
like
we've actually been in talks with them, and they've even said they kind of want coaches. I don't know if this will go through, but they want coaches to come on stage and present their ban.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Terrible idea. Awful idea.
Won't it take ages?
I think it's really bad because then they can't talk to their players effectively about the bans at the same time.
You cannot, like, we cannot.
I think that would get even more time, right? Yeah. Like obviously as a coach, you want to like milk the time as much as you can and make sure, you know, all your players are like on board, especially when it's like, oh, they banned something we didn't expect. Okay, we got to shift focus, you know, and
we need.
I mean, as long as they're
need to have like a camera of them in the dugout, like talking about it. But
or do it on stage.
You can even listen to the comms if. But let the coach walk out onto stage, and then but have the coach because the teams need to discuss what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, as long as there's enough time for like the coaches and the team to talk, then I'm like fine with it, you know. But there needs to be like at least the 90 seconds, and it needs to be time for like every team, so everybody gets the same amount of time.
But some
teams were like eating it, you know, where they're like taking like so much longer than they were allowed to, and then.
Yeah, but do you not think if you're out there back discussing it, and you discuss it with your team, and then you're told you got to go walk out on stage to present it to the world, and you're still not certain? Are you not still talking to your team as you're walking away?
Walking so slow.
Walking like, let me...
Oh, my knee!
So you need the amount of time to lock
an injury?
So like that 90 seconds, you know, you need the amount of time to lock it in. And then after you've
you
locked
have to tell the admin, and then you have to walk out. Okay, and you can't
get out of the dugout.
Yeah,
and walk on there, and it needs to be like timed, so every team has like the same amount of time to talk about bans.
I think just put them on, put the whole team on stage, because that's what they do in other games, right? Like in
like
Dota
where
and
you
League,
get the headset and you stand behind your players.
Everyone's on there, because that's also how they should set up, right? Because for every team, we talk about like you're going to pick the roster afterwards, right? Which means everyone needs to go and set up.
Yeah.
But in reality, for every roster, there are very few rosters when there's actually multiple spots in question. You know what I mean? Like it is only some people are playing no matter what, right? Like London and Astro are not going to be changing setup, right? They're going to Haddy probably won't be changing setup. You know, like these players can get set up, so then you only need 1 player or 2 players per team max to come and test their stuff, and that should also speed up the turnaround for these kind of things.
I think that this is just like actually harder than what's being described though, in terms of like from a production standpoint. Like Dota and League are not fair comparisons to this. Dota and League are games where like the pick ban system, it's like a very long section of the broadcast.
Like
you know?
20 minutes.
You do like a pick ban and then you play a long series. You know, like there's an analysis segment dedicated to this for all broadcasts. But for Overwatch, we're talking about like cramming something in, which is basically like, you know, we're talking about a 90-second time frame for the whole thing between every map, right? And like, if they're not cutting to the analysis desk between every map to make something happen for this, to actually make the segment clear, it will be confusing pretty quickly, or at least like the meaning behind it will be tough. Like say you've got, I don't actually know who the talent is for the event, but say you've got Uber and Hex talking about this, or Uber and Mr. X talking about this.
No,
it's like, do you trust?
I can't believe
do you trust Mr. X to? Yeah, that's on me. Do you trust Mr. X to describe your defensive bans, like realistically speaking?
No.
Exactly. So it's like if they're not cutting the analysis desk, if they're not cutting to the analysis desk as well, like there's a lot of moving parts involved. In this, and it's all really fast. Like Dota and League it's way easier. It's a fucking long segment every time.
There will be more time because the players have to then come and set up afterwards, right? Like at least one of the players in theory, unless you're like a Toronto system.
Yeah, I think that 5-minute section they have to be on the desk.
Like if 5 minutes between each map.
It's
going to take so long too because they have to do the bans and then the roster swap. And then they have to go set up, you know, because you don't know before. Like, you don't know right after the map ends whether you're putting a player in or not. So it's going to take insanely long. Like, you have to first do the ban, then put your player in, and then they have to set up and make sure it's working. It's going to be like
it will.
6-7 minutes, like, between each map. It's gonna take a while.
That's why they have to make a show of it. Otherwise, if you just cut to a 7-minute break, everyone's going to switch off, you know? Viewership's obviously not going to be that good for the EWC given the advertising factor that we have here. So I think I don't know, they have to make it interesting in some way. They need to get all the graphics prepared. They need to give Jake tons of Adderall so he's like probably switched on for it. Give him some of those. What were this? The snooze that he takes.
The snooze.
That's what he was smoking. So yeah, that's what we need.
Get him loaded up on those. Yes.
Just drug him up and
But as long as they do that, I think it has a really good chance to actually go really well and add a load of depth to what we see and give coaches a load more. Like you said, I think it shouldn't be underestimated because we've seen it a little bit in Face It already with like people sort of choking map drafts, mainly against Virtus Pro for whatever reason. But for whatever reason, everyone will always choke the map draft against Virtus Pro. But now, this isn't just, this is a bit of a tough map to play these guys on. This is, we've actually fucked the entire comp. We've actually just, my coach has sabotaged me. I now hate him. We're going to get pounded in this map.
Now, before I could always flame my players, but now sometimes they're like, why'd you ban this? And I'm like, I just wanted to practice, man. It's funny.
I remember Cass before the Hero Bans got announced. We did that one scrim where we guessed what the format was going to be, and we didn't do the roll lock. And I remember there was one time because I was like the first time I ever did scrims. I thought I was such a fucking genius. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ban BAP on Rialto, and then they're forced to play Kiri Mauga Mirror. And I was like, yeah, these guys are fucked. And then you just typed ban Kiri, and I was like, oh, I'm so fucked now. I don't know what to play.
I think that's why maybe it's good they've done this roll lock thing because it was really OP. Like second ban was like beyond broken. Like it might make closer series too, but second ban was just so OP that like even if you're the worst team, you should always win when you're second ban. So with this roll lock thing, like the first ban has become more OP, you know, but it's like not comparable to how OP second ban was before. So that makes it so whoever's higher seed would just win the series, you know, if the teams are even remotely close. So I do think like this protect ban's pretty interesting. But yeah, before that time, we were like, oh, if they ban a DPS, it's so easy to guess what DPS they're gonna pick, you know? Like I remember you guys, or like we banned Cass, and then you guys like banned Sojourn, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, you know?
So
now you can't play hit scans anymore because all hit scans are gone. So I thought like there was some interesting stuff, but I think it's the same with this like ban system where it's like, oh, they banned this because they want to play that comp, and it's usually pretty obvious, but you can make like some pretty smart bans. There's definitely higher impact for coaches, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, it's why we're losing scrims.
So one train of thought that I think has been touted with this ban system is that obviously players with greater flexibility will be buffed by this because there'll be more situations where flexibility is required, and therefore rosters like Toronto's or maybe rosters who happen to contain an entirely Korean contingent of players will be buffed. Do you think that's fair then? That essentially this is a nerf for maybe EMEA and some of the NA teams?
Yeah.
I think the only gripe, it's like some teams will have, I don't think this way, but I think to play devil's advocate, it's like it's the biggest tournament of the year and we're trying it out here, you know, for especially like for teams like Fnatic and Zeta, which they might not make the next tournament, right? Because Crazy Raccoon and Falcons are so high. We don't know whether or not in Stockholm there's going to be more slots for Koreans. It's like we're banking all of this on a single elimination format with bans that we've never played in a tournament before. It's like a lot of unknowns, but I think it is really fun. But the only gripe is like it's the biggest tournament. I wish, you know, there was like more tournaments we could have tried this on before. But I think if you're going to try it anywhere, do it in the, you know, Face It hosted tournament, not the Blizzard one. And see if it works or not. And if it works, I mean, why not keep it, right?
Yeah.
The only way that they could have tried it out in advance was using like the Face It League, but the system just wouldn't have been there to actually enforce it, you know? That was
they
all
wanted
like
to try it in the Face It League playoffs, but it was kind of do or die, you know? And there wasn't enough time where teams could have practiced for it after Dallas.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like with EWC, everything's kind of like cobbled together last minute in a sense, you know, like they're still making these ban rule changes, like even up until this week, just about. So, I mean, like to have this stuff ironed out like months ago already would already have been, you know, like a bit of an ask with the time frame that they've been working on. So I think it's fair enough that they do it here. I mean, it's like a big unprecedented tournament. They can do whatever they want with their format. It may be the biggest tournament of the year, but it's like, it's not EWC's fault that it's the biggest tournament of the year. You know, that's just a reflection on the state of the game. So they might as well do it. You know, they said from the onset, like they were asking about hero bans long time ago.
Yeah, they said
before Face It League had even started. But to actually enforce it and to get it working, like that's a different matter entirely.
I think it's also hard because I think a lot of the time when these rules or these sort of changes are proposed, even if people think about it, they don't really think about it and truly run into the problems until they start testing it and scrimming it and have to prepare for a tournament. So a lot of these issues or problems, I don't think get flagged until teams are actually actively scrimming this system and go, oh yeah, this is actually a big problem. This doesn't work at all. So I think it would be hard for them to have got to this point much before either way.
I think I don't know if we should talk about like the overall like format for the tournament too, because I think it's obviously also a brand new format. Kind of. So go on.
I was going to say, so the original announcement was it was going to be the 4 groups that we've all seen. I can even bring them up now. And there was going to be a double round robin between all these groups, which means you play every other team in the group twice. Is that changed now?
Yeah, I think it's now single round robin.
Yeah, it's a single round robin, I believe, because there's such a limited time. Like,
there's only 4 days, right?
4 days of
tournament. 4 days. That would have been some.
You would have been playing like 5 or 6 matches a day to do a group stage in 2 days, and then like a single elim, like a 16-team bracket over 2 days as well. Like really, really aggressive schedule. So in theory, is this better then? Obviously, the single round robin.
I feel like a double round robin wouldn't change too much as long as it's first to free. I think if it was like first to two. I
mean, what was the point? What was the point of the double round robin?
Yeah, I feel like a single round
seems like a bit much.
I think most of these groups are like pretty obvious in the way they're gonna pan out.
I think
trying them on top, whatnot.
The only one presumably is I would hope you would argue that Group D has potential to be close to see who wins it. Yeah. Unless you're super career pilled, Cass.
I think Fnatic they kind of have an issue with hero bans too, where before they were like so reliant on Donghack. And I'm still Donghack pilled, but I think it's like easier to ban out now. I think they kind of struggle with that, and they made some big changes too. Like they kind of favor from this you can put your roster after the bans as well, because they've brought in Brigman Checkmate and then Izayaki, Lee Jae-gon. They're basically a whole new team. So I don't know how good they are, to be honest. If I were to say, I do think Zeta is better than Fnatic.
Agreed.
So if you guys have chances against any Korean team on hero bans, I think you guys can take out Fnatic. But
I mean, Fnatic's made this like backline roster change, but I'm just like not too high on that backline at all at this point. I feel like they were.
If it was season 4, though,
downgrade, no. I think Irony was kind of a thrower, except on Ana, but just in general, kind of a thrower. But I think Bliss was really solid, and then
I'm not convinced. I'm not buying into the Bliss hype. I feel like a lot of the games I watched, he was just like in.
That sounds a lot like the other guy that
sounds like a lot like
the other guy's like 30 years old.
Lee Jae-gon is like incredibly good in like rush metas, right? But that's not a rush team you're slotting him into. That's a dive team. Right?
Yeah, but if they just play Kiri Lucio, it's probably fine, right? Because where they've had their success is playing a really aggressive dive, right? So fuck it. Put Lee Jae-gong in, send him in for another round. 20 deaths and a few trades.
Man, Lucio.
Fuck.
I
think he's Brig as good, to be fair. At least it was once upon a time.
Yeah, they were good at Brig on him.
I mean, he's basically like, hasn't he like basically won the Overwatch League playing Brig?
Fuck it, Brig shit. I think if Lucio's banned, I'm not convinced Brig's that good.
Yeah. I just think that the thing about Lee Jae-gon is that it's like he's one of those players that's, you know, like very much old guard, getting worse, only good at his best hero at this point kind of situation. And
he's had a really bad year so far as well, I think.
Izayaki never gets like addressed as a direct issue or whatever, because he's probably not like a standout problem, but he's probably like also on a pretty like significant downward trajectory in his career.
Yeah, and him and Checkway were both in Saudi Arabia for so long, right? Just wasting away.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting worse.
How good are they now, right? Well, we'll see, but how good are they now is a big question.
Even before then, would you not have said on Boston last year Izayaki was the weak link?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think that backline was
an issue.
Yeah.
Right, but how could you, like, they had Smurf on tank and then they had an insane DPS line. So it's easy to beat a weak link, but I definitely think their backline was, you know, the weak link. I think unless Twilight was on Ana, I think they just look bad, like significantly worse.
One other thing to say about the format is the way that it works once you get out of groups is so the team that finishes first in the group is going to get a bye to the quarterfinals, and then there's going to be a draft show where the second place team of each group picks their opponent from the third, and then after that, then there will be another draft show where the first of each team will draft whoever's left in it. And whilst on paper that sounds really good, I actually figured like because it's seeded, right? Are you not actually super likely to get a lot of let's assume that like if you go to the group sex, like we can do it. The way that it's seeded is like we're 4th seed, Fnatic is 5th seed, which means that I guess ENCE is 6th seed, LGD is 7th seed, and Toronto is 8th seed. Let's imagine that no offense, Cass. Let's imagine that EWC was 100% right with the seeds. If you got first choice of it, if you're Crazy Raccoon, are you not also going to pick the 8th best team who's already in your group, and then vice versa? Is there not actually a world somewhere where if the seeding is accurate, that actually the group stages, the single elim games, you're going to get a lot of repeat games from the group stages?
I could see that. I think the way it works, right, is the second seed in the group goes in the first bracket. They pick from the third seeds of each group, right? So they could pick whoever they could pick from their own group, the third seed. Is that correct? Or can you not pick from your own group?
As far as I'm aware, you can pick from your own
So
group.
let's say, you know, for the sake of argument, we're second and Peps is third. Why don't we pick Peps again? You know,
because you've
we've
just
already
beaten
beaten them.
presumably you've just beaten
you know what
Peps,
they're gonna
right?
do.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of teams are gonna think that way. We've already beaten this guys. Let's just pick them. Right?
And
unless there's like a very
obvious
choice.
Yeah, and Crazy Raccoons could think the exact same and pick you. And obviously, you have one side of the bracket is just Group A.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I mean, I feel like the draft show is interesting, but it can get griefed so easy. Like I remember in 2021, Shanghai was obviously the best team, and we on Shock, we got fourth, so we were the fourth best team, and yet they picked us in round 1 because they knew we could beat us, not because we were the worst team. They just wanted to eliminate us early. So this could lead to like some teams that maybe should be fourth being eighth instead. Because a really strong team knows they could beat you and they pick you anyway. While if you played a different team, you might have made it up the bracket, which is just the problem with single elim in general, right? It's like because it's an elimination bracket, that's gonna happen no matter what. Like some teams will just be good, and be wrongly seeded,
I don't think that'll happen in a single elimination format. I think if you know that a team is strong and it's single elim, you're always going to pick the weakest team in your draft. It'd be like a little different in a double elim bracket where it's like, we want to put them into lowers early, like in the situation that you described. Like obviously they knew that they could beat you in 21, but at the same time,
they still had a backup.
Yeah, that they have the backup, so they're willing to take a gamble, a tiny little gamble of picking a team that they know is stronger. Whereas I think in this case, like people will always gravitate towards like they'll avoid the fear of the unknown and they'll just pick the weakest people from their group that they dominated, because there will be a team that they dominated at the bottom of their group every time.
Yeah, but
I think if they wanted to make it more interesting,
strong team, right?
I guess, but
that's the problem, right? But
I mean, there's only one group where that might happen, right? Like, and even then, I don't think it'll happen.
I think there will be more obvious picks for these first seed teams, right? Because I do think there's like 3 or 4 like really bad teams that will just be a free win in like the first round of the bracket, and then the weakest winners of that will just get picked first by in this case Crazy Raccoon.
Yeah,
I'm told there's an easy solve. So
yeah, because surely you just say you can't pick the team from your own group, right? And then you force different fixtures. Matchups. I mean you stop repeat fixtures.
Yeah, I think that could be a good rule.
And I don't think that's like really feels that unreasonable for any of the.
Yeah, I mean, there is a slight problem because if A picks B, then B picks C, and C picks A, then D is left with D. But even then, I mean, it's better than.
But I think the last pick is always whatever's left.
You kind of get screwed anyway.
You don't get a draft as the fourth seed anyway, right? That's how it's always been with those draft picks. The fourth seed just gets the leftovers.
Yeah,
I think the biggest worry, because I think from what I want from this type of tournament where this is going to be the most competition in terms of the most teams from the most different regions all competing at one event. So what I want to see is I want high stakes games, but that'll probably come naturally anyway because all the big teams are here and there's money on the line and all of this. But what I also want is I want to see loads of different fixtures, right? Like one thing that we maybe robbed at in Dallas was that SSG didn't play Toronto. Like, wouldn't it have been great to see that fixture on LAN? And the same problem would have happened here with the double round robin is like, would we got to see loads of Korea versus Europe and Korea versus NA and NA versus Europe? Yes, but the same teams again and again, And I think the same's true of this singular limb, right? Like, if you're one of the European or American teams, you probably want to play as many of these Korean teams and Team China, right? But it's really possible you're not going to play these teams. Or you're going to play one of the Korean teams in groups, and then you might not play another one. Or you're only going to play 2 out of 4 or something, or you're not going to play Team China. And I feel like that's part of a problem with these. I'd rather have seen like 2 groups, essentially. Like 2 bigger groups, and then a bigger round robin, but you get more variety of fixtures, and then you can still do the same type of seeding into the playoffs and all of that. But you get to see more of the different teams against each other. Because I think there's a real high chance we're going to miss out on loads of potential fixtures with this format.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's just a side effect of the time restriction they have, right? You only have 4 days, so you can't show as many, fixtures as you want. And it's basically the choice they had is between just doing a double alien bracket or doing this group stage into single alien bracket. I think that's the choice they had And I think with the group stage, you'll be able to see more, quote unquote, like you won't just fly there to play 2 games and get eliminated, right? At least every team will be able to play 3 games in their group, and only 1 team from each group is eliminated. So I think that's one thing they wanted to focus on. When I was talking to the guys that face it, they were like, at least with the group stage, you won't just play 2 games, you lose twice, you get eliminated. Now at least you'll be able to play 3 games, lose, and get eliminated.
Max, you've got to show up for 3 games before you get to go back home.
That's actually 50% more work for you, Max. Fuck.
Yeah, no, Kaluja's probably spitting chips about this development. You know, he was looking forward to the early release.
He'll make it out of groups, so then he'll have to play at least 4 games and get eliminated.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on, you know, his attitude towards the event, right? He wants out so desperately, you know, maybe he'll just take the early L. I mean, so yeah, like if Kaluja's going to get out of the group, like why is he even complaining about the last place prize money? You know, he's like, I'm being forced to go to Riyadh for a tournament that I signed up for that would take me to Riyadh, and I'm definitely getting last place, which means I'm definitely getting this minimum amount of money. It's like, well,
he's gonna get double that. His money is unironically getting doubled for almost
just
as long as they can rustle up a result against Bleed.
You double the money for flying out.
He's definitely a client. Is there any more format stuff we wanted to cover, or should we talk a bit about teams? We kind of like started talking teams, but
nothing else
is for the format. Yeah, hero bands, format,
maps, the groups.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess since we last talked, the groups weren't actually out. I don't know if I think most of the groups probably speak for themselves in terms of how we anticipate them to go. Maybe Group D is the only one that's like there's a question mark over what order they finish in.
Well, do we want to just go through the groups and talk about the teams once Cass gets back?
Yeah, we can do that. We'll wait for Cass out of respect.
I feel like what you said is true, that like certain teams, like I'll glaze Cass while he's not here. Maybe it's actually like a backhanded glaze. I don't know what the equivalent of backhanded glaze would be, but like when we scrimmed Toronto for the first time, when we were like imagining what hero bands would look like, I was immediately like, these guys are so fucking prepped for hero bands. Because the way that like Toronto scrim anyways, they just scrim so many random fucking comps. And it's like, you're wasting so much time practicing, which is maybe why they got like fucked at Dallas. But actually for this hero band, it's like, oh, well, if there's one team that knows how to fucking deal with like Winston and Akiri on this map, it's Toronto, you know, because they've actually kind of like been playing a bit of everything. So I felt that when we scrimmed them for the first time, I was like, yeah, actually hero bands is really good for Toronto, and like the way that they've been practicing and the way that their like comp system goes anyway.
Yeah, and trust the documents at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was all ahead of the
for all the flame, kind of, you know, they've kind of taken like a leaf out of the Florida playbook from the previous year, where, you know, they've just like leaned really heavily into the flexibility of their core roster, and then maybe Cass has amped it up a little bit in terms of like the method in which they actually practice those different comps, but, you know, like making sure that they're always actually going to be able to lean into their flexibility if it is relevant.
I think that way of practicing is a little amplified against you guys too, Hunter, because we need to handicap ourselves to make it a competitive.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but I mean, I've seen scrims versus SSG where it's like, you know, a similar 6-0 block of you just getting like pummeled by the same thing, and it's like, you know, the Echo Tracer, you know, Merit Tracer, Lenny Echo kind of situation. So, you know, while you may need to handicap yourself versus the college team, you know, like you still do the same thing versus Chrissy's team. So, you know, you can't just punch down on the university boys.
Ironically, all that time learning Merit Tracer, and then on the one time to pick Ilios and to prove it, we didn't do it. You had it right there. You could have.
We swapped off that a long time ago. Do not worry.
Yeah, good call to get off that, to be honest. I think, you know, your defensive not picking Ilios is pretty solid. I'll say that you know, maybe you still could have made it work. You know, Florida was like famously good at making those sorts of comps work on Ilios, you know, playing strange stuff. But I guess you guys have like 2 points of failure instead of 1. It's like you couldn't do Echo Ash and be good at the Echo, whereas Checkmate could last year on Florida. So fair enough to dodge the Echo pick this time around.
I think it's not one of Lenny's strongest picks. I do think his Genji and Tracer are both stronger than his Echo. But
famously good at Genji, as we've always said.
That one's definitely
always rated Sugar Free's Genji since day one. That's his bread and his butter.
I cracked up when I saw that. I'm like, oh no. But
I swear it wasn't me.
If I saw us,
check it back, I
if
don't
I
think
saw
it
us
was
play
me.
that way,
I
then I would think so too.
I think I would have. I'm pretty sure I've said on stream or maybe on the podcast as well. Now I feel like, especially that Mauga Genji comp, feels like it's just someone not on his best hero, Sugar Free not on his best hero, and those two players weren't able to make the same impact. I think a lot of teams have this problem, but it's like the flex DPS problem when you play against these Korean teams is that actually even if you think you've got a good Genji, suddenly you don't if you're against Proper or something. Like it's not comparable. Like even if your Genji is more than good enough to win North America or the best in the West, suddenly we're playing against Proper Genji and it's not the same impact anymore. And it's just like it's a problem that a lot of these Korean teams don't face. Hisan can play whatever hero and it works out really fine for him all the time.
Yeah, no, in the Mauga comp, that it kind of plays exactly like that Queen Genji comp that we were also good at with Shock. The 2022 stage 3 one, where you're playing Queen Genji Sojourn. It's pretty similar where your Genji like engages and then your Queen follows up. It's the same where the Genji like dashes into Mauga, pins after the Genji and gives him shout. It's so just taking playbooks from like a previous iteration of something similar, which I think Proper was by far. I think him and Sparkle were like the top 2 Genjis by far, that meta. So, but yeah, I see what you're saying. We're like, the Korean Genjis, the Korean Echoes, and the Korean Tracers are like different,
we got Psycho on the Echo. He's pretty solid at that. He might be reaching the KR level.
Should we hit some group predictions then? Now we've actually got the locked-in groups for this. So we'll start with Group A. So your chance here, Cass. Are we beating Crazy Raccoon?
I mean, I can't root against my own team.
But
if I'm to be 100%,
betting man, I'd say we're fucked.
Group status don't matter. Copium. If I'm realistic, right, and there's no expectations on us as well. Crazy Raccoon gets first, we get second, and then Gaming Gladiators get third.
They got it, yeah.
I think they've got it.
Sorry to all our South American viewers.
Is it South America the worst region?
Yeah, right?
I think so, right?
I think someone said that half their team is Masters. No, like they're not even like GM.
I think a lot of their players.
We've come a long way from Alamo.
My Twitter DMs will be filled with death threats this time tomorrow. But
Alamo making Owl, and now we've come a long way since South America. But I feel like that's the same with all minor regions. Like they've,
I mean that roster is like by far the weakest at the tournament, though, by like an enormous margin. Like for all the memeing about Showman being a bit of a Kappa team or whatever. I mean, I think that like the skill tier break between that roster and our team is like absolutely enormous. Like that South American roster is a complete joke compared to the level of competition everywhere else. And then even if the Showmen are a complete joke, then there's a tier break between these two jokes,
And these are the sort of fixtures we're getting robbed of by not having a bigger group stage. If we had bigger groups, we could get this. We get a South America versus OCE showdown, and we could finally settle who is top of the bottom. But we'll just have to rely on shit talk until then. If we hit Group B, is it pretty obvious again? Unless you've got a series of cope here about how you're getting out of what's the plan to get out of groups?
I mean, this is Unter's pitch to can he be Twisted Minds, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I want to like rank. Well, I guess if I were going to rank them, it'd be like Falcons, LGD, Twisted, Showman, but Showman, Twisted. What am I saying? But I mean, I think this group's interesting, to be honest. Maybe not from a results standpoint, but just like looking at the teams in there, I think that there's like genuinely some upset potential because it's like I don't really know where the team from China sits anymore. I feel like they've been deprived of like meaningful competition for such a long time. I'm not really sure like what level they're at nowadays. I'm sure that they're still very solid. It's an extremely good roster, but because they've been excluded from like the major pro circuit for so long, I don't know how involved they've been in Korean scrims throughout that time. But I mean, we're 7 months into the year. The last time that team was at a meaningful tournament, it was like November of last year. So that's a really, really, really long break from competition. Like that region's been excluded for such a long time that it's actually at the point where LGD could be a bit weaker than people are expecting. I don't know if any of you guys have heard anything.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had like LGD as like third in the overall tournament, but I feel like that's such a stretch for the given the circumstances.
Yeah. I think the break will really hurt them. So I'm really interested to see how that team shapes up at the LAN.
Like hero bans also significantly.
It hurts them too, because they have really quite one tricky players. So I think that they're hurt both by the format and by the fact that they probably haven't been scrimming together for like an 8-month period. They've had this massive break. I think they were playing in some like little Chinese tournaments, but I can't imagine they were going as hard as they used to be because it's just like not the same level of competition and incentive. And then on top of China being, a bit of a question mark in terms of their skill, which could be like a fun little upset, or it could be them just being sick again. Who knows? Then you've got Twisted Minds, where it's like I think most people who are in the know that Twisted Minds has been, a bit tumultuous over the past few months. Their roster's become a bit of a rotating door, or a revolving door, where they can't decide on who their tank player is and who their Lucio player is. Ever since Kellex left that team, they've just had this like massive collapse in terms of ability to get along. It's like KSA is leaving, and then they get Kellen in, and then Kellen's leaving or kicked. I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there. I feel like they've had God knows how many support players at this point. It's like they keep cycling main support players. I think they got Sky, and then they took Sky out and got Slay instead. Like it's just this massive revolving door of players. And now they have a Saudi tank. They have TVNT on tank, which is like such a massive downgrade from massive downgrade from either of Kellen or KSA. And TVNT is probably going to be another one of those players that gets quite heavily exploited by hero bans, someone that, he's more of a ground tank player, but not to the same level as KSA. So I think that like Twisted is going to be an interesting showing as well. Because naturally when they show up at a Saudi event, they're going to have like a little bit of there's going to be like vibrations in the soil or something. They have power based on where they're playing from. And Twisted shows up for most of their important matches, I'd say. But at the same time, it's just a roster that's had so much trouble over the past few months that it could be like an upset-worthy team.
Yeah, I heard, because I don't think TM is scrimming any Western team at the moment. And I heard that they're actually playing on ping Korean scrims from home. Because I guess like the ping from Saudi to Korea is not bad. So apparently that's what they're doing. So they took a few weeks off, and apparently they've like effectively doing a Korean boot camp from home. But I agree. I think that roster has just got worse and worse. It doesn't feel like anyone. You never talk to anyone that plays with TM and think that they want to be there for more than like 5 minutes. It feels like it's like such a hard team to be a part of, which probably explains why everybody's getting. What did you see the Skeng Wong tweet where he said like the way he worded it?
What was that? I love Skeng Wong, but for PR control, that was probably
getting rid of Kellen was a decision made by all players. All right, okay. So cheers to that.
Just to be clear, we all hated him. There was
we all wanted to get rid of him.
Unanimous.
One guy.
So is Skengers the new manager for that team?
Yeah.
What happened to Akai? Like I thought that was Akai's.
I think he really underperformed at Dallas. They weren't happy with his performance, and then he was just off the roster.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Akai's
the staff on that roster is sometimes as big of a question mark as what's going on with the revolving.
I mean,
door.
they get through so many coaches too. TM like so many coaches like last
week.
Yeah.
It's the same situation. Yeah, no, everyone will like clock into Twisted Minds for a month and then clock right out straight away.
Yeah,
it's not a long-term arrangement with them. Usually, there's a lot of turnover on that roster.
So what you're telling me is Twisted Minds has lost the glue, right? They've lost Kellex, and you guys have acquired the glue because everybody knows opener's the glue. Without TSM without opener,
it's going to be
a glue transfer.
So, opener.
We are sticky. I maybe a little copy, but I do kind of feel like, because they have the weaknesses that I've just described, we know that, mentals might be at like an all-time high of paper thin. Their practice is being like pretty significantly hampered by the fact that they change roster every 2 weeks. I think there's all the conditions to have an upset win versus a team like Twisted. If you'd asked me this question a couple of months ago, I would have said absolutely fucking not. Even if you'd asked me this a month ago when they had Kellen, I would have said absolutely fucking not. Because it's like, Kellen is, again, like I'd say that I rate Kellen reasonably highly. He's not a god, but he's a KR level tank, put it that way. He's got flexibility, and he's like, that guy is really well suited to the hero bans because he is flexible as fuck. But TVNT, that's a player that you see them on the enemy team and you think, wow, like you can actually counterpick versus this guy.
Yeah, when you're off Sigma, I don't know if you're still as solid, right?
Yeah.
All you need is your coach not to choke.
There's a few roles where you could gap them. I think if you play your cards right. Your roster's
more flexible, right?
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Actually,
we've got opener and Aki. Aki might be the question mark here because none of you are going to recognize his name because he's an Australian flex support player. Opener needs no introduction. He's sticky. He's the glue. But so we have an Australian flex support. So we're probably going to get gapped in that role just quietly. Sorry, Aki. But but other than that, we actually have a very flexible roster. Punk is about as flexible of a Western tank as you could ask for.
Punk went through the ringer last year for this.
Yeah, no, Punk's been going through the ringer forever, dude. You say last year, it's like Punk has been like on a 4-year-long torture chamber. Genuinely, he defined the ringer. So we got Punk, who's very flexible. We got 3 DPS players. Color Hex is very flexible. Newish, our hit scan Australian. He's I'd say he's probably underrated at the tournament. Because nobody really knows him, but he's just like one of those strong performing ranked players. And then we have a Top Dragon. The Top Dragon, who he didn't make it into Al at the end, but I'd say he's a pretty reasonably high level player.
He's going to be my pickup past Spectra. If I wouldn't have picked up Spectra, I would have picked up Top Dragon.
He has like really good English
too, right?
Yeah, he has really good English, and I'd say he's actually like a very good player. He like dipped his toes into North America a little bit, but he was on a team that wasn't flying him out like Pelican was being flown out. Yeah, exactly. He was playing on like 200 ping because it's central servers for NA. So that didn't really work out for him. He wound up getting benched. I'd say playing Tracer on 200 ping, that's pretty difficult. Pelican managed it, but at the end of the day, they flew Pelican out and his team got like 100 times better straight away. So I'd say that we actually do have like reasonable depth in our roster. Like we actually can pick the majority of comps. And I don't think the same can really be said for Twisted. If we wind up in a dive matchup versus Twisted, maybe I'm happy. Maybe I'm really happy.
And you can draft it if you play your cards right. You can draft into dive maps. On non-dive maps, you can just like, if TVNT can only pick 2 or 3 heroes, bam one of them and just have Punk start the counter pick to whatever's left. Like you can really, really play around it. I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
but
as well. Like,
probably finish 4th.
Yeah, I think it's way more likely than the Group A one, but I think you're probably still on paper at least. I think it'll be interesting.
No, I mean, this is all a cope session, but like there's a chance, right?
There's a more than 0% chance.
We'll take the non-zero. I like a non-zero chance.
Yeah, I think it's especially interesting to see Top Dragon play at like a high quality event. I feel like at the moment he feels to me a little bit like. Do you remember when like Who Are You first came on? It's like this guy's just got loads of talent, but then it never quite translated. I feel like that's how I feel about Top Dragon, where I feel like whenever I watch him, he's crazy. But he's also just never been on a proper team or like a consistently successful team, either in North America or obviously in Korea either. So there's this sort of question mark of why is he not ended up on one of those teams yet? Then I'll go on. Group C.
We're doing Group C? Yeah, let's do it. I actually have a spicy take. I think M80 will beat ENCE.
That's outrageous.
I think M80 will beat ENCE. I think even though, they're not scrimming, they're kind of stupid. I think Tree is absurd. Tree is really, really good. And I think between ENCE losing Chase, which severely limits their hero pool, of course.
No. I have a counter hot take.
What is your counter hot take?
Okay, I think that Crimzo is so fucking lucky that Putin is still not letting Chase get out of his own fucking country. Because I actually think ENCE, when Chase was playing, lost so much aura. They just had no identity. They had nothing strong about them. They were just like an EU team with just like decent players, but nothing special. Whereas I think the ENCE lineup with Vestola in, I think actually Vest on his heroes, Vest is fucking good. And I actually think that's what you need, is like you need like a bit of identity. So they'll still have the problems of fucking Ilios, but I actually think that like Vest, like should have been playing way more than Chase, even when they were in. And even if Chase has the flexibility, I think Chase is like good, but nothing Chase plays. I'm like, oh, Chase is going to play Winston against any team. Like he's fine at everything, but in an international tournament, there isn't anything that he's like crazy at. Whereas Vest has 1 or 2 picks where he's like his sig is KR level 100%, right? Like that's
100%.
That's like, and I actually think that like for me, I was even when we were scrimming against ENCE when they played Chase, I was like, this is just a team that's just like good at everything but great at nothing. Whereas Vest, there was a comp there. There was some sort of comp with Kai on hit scan, ENCE, Vest on Sigma, and then Kev flexing around. I was like, yeah, this team is actually really good.
Is it?
I do agree, but I do think that was like the full roster thing, right? With Ghost and then Masa and then Vest. I agree, they had aura, but I think losing like all the Finnish players, like they have Skyripa now and they have Rack Attack because Masa's not playing. You know, I think their aura is gone anyway from that comp. Even
I mean, they are worse, I agree.
Right, like I think it's a pretty big downgrade on like that comp's backline specifically for Lucio Bap. Right, I think maybe they're more flexible now.
Also, it depends how high you were on the Massa Ghost. You know, like I think that backline was hardly like that wasn't the reason they were winning anyway. You know, I think Sky might be better at Bap.
I think
Sky might be better Bap than Ghost. I think.
I disagree. A lot of like I feel like Ghost is still an experience, but mechanically on Bap he was very good. I think, and Masa, I think he brings like a certain type of experience. I think mechanic, like he's old, right? Like, but I do think that team had synergy together. I mean, he's older than me, and I'm old.
Yeah, but you don't play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've aged with grace, unlike this guy.
So I think there's a big argument that M80 could win just off, you know. I think Kevster is undeniable, right? Like, but I think backline-wise, I think UV's really good. They have a chance.
Don't you actually, if there was a time to have Chase, would it not be against a team that is maybe hard locked into like Sigma Diva?
Yeah, because then
both teams don't want to ban each other's hero pool because they're both
they both just want to go to Sigma maps every map. So we'll maybe just see a like handshake agreement.
Kaluj these days, no?
100%. Like 100%.
I think on Sigma, Kaluj is still insane. Right? Off Sigma,
against you guys, I watched him. I thought the guy was fun watch.
I think against us, they just always troll. Like
yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe
like against you guys, I thought like that backline's pretty good. I think in general, if they come together and actually try, like in maybe the week leading up, they could do it. If they just keep not caring.
I feel like scrims and hero bands is really nice too because there's so many fucking like there's so much prep to do for hero bands. Showing up like fucking massive gator. They're just gonna wing it on the day.
Yeah, but that's the thing about that matchup. Isn't both teams just going to leave open like every good character that they both play?
Well, until one team goes 2-0 up and then the other team starts to pivot, presumably.
I think there's a chance. I can see Z01, M80 2, ENCE 3.
No, I can't. I think the ENCE 2.
I think 1 and 4 is locked, right? There's not going to be any debate there.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an argument in current form that Spectre and Tree are a better DPS duo than Kev Kai?
Not without scrims either. No way. I haven't went too hard on ENCE here. If M80 scrimmed, you can, and they were good, but
I do think Spectre was a lot worse than he was last year. Like last year, I think Spectre like never died. He never died first, and he just hit his pulse bombs, did his job. But this year, I always see him die first. I think if Spectre can play like he played last year, I think there's an argument there. But this year, I don't think so. I think Tree is in better form than Kaido.
I think I'd agree with that, actually.
Really? Fucking Tree better than Kai?
For a hit scan matchup? Like,
yeah.
I'm Kai.
Kai pilled?
Kai head.
Yeah, I think it's a harder sell. You know, maybe if it was like more double flex centric, you know, you could be a Tree head like really easily. But if we're talking just like a head-to-head hit scan matchup, I think like you can't you can't just sleep on the fact that M80 doesn't play the game anymore. You know, like their whole fucking
it is a
roster.
big fact that they don't play overboard.
It's a disadvantage. I think
we've got a couple
we can all agree on that.
One player might not be playing. Colin might be clocking it in, but I think the rest of them really want to win.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just like an indictment on Colin at that point that, you know, like everyone else is putting in the effort, or so you claim? You know, I was more of this.
They have no other option, do they? Who else are you going to pick up for tank? So
they could bring Hawk back for one last ride again. You know, like just double.
I mean, he'll be next. Kaluj will retire. Hawk will be back, and then Hawk will retire, and Kaluj will be back.
It's like a timeshare for the tank spot on M80. Like, you do this stage, will you, pal?
Yeah. They're just like 1 degree of separation away from like clocking Dante in for like another retired player.
So I'm feeling an ENCE second then an M80 third, but I think there's a lot of upset potential.
Yeah,
I think
that's the fun game, right? In the group, like that's the one that you want to be there for. But I think I'm ENCE build.
All right, then this is the group that gets really tricky. Maybe. I mean, I guess maybe it doesn't, at least in terms of the fact that Virtus Pro have proven time and time again, if you ever go dive against them, they fall over. And Fnatic probably have a good dive on them. SSG can beat them on dive. So it feels like Virtus Pro are maybe capped in terms of they can't beat these two teams. But actually against whatever they're going to be called now, the Timeless roster, which we can maybe talk about that in a bit as well. But in terms of the actual matchup, that's actually a really nice matchup for Virtus Pro, I think, into that Timeless team, or Timeless, in terms of the comps they want to play. I think it allows Virtus Play to play all their strengths. I don't think they're as worried about maybe infected Zera-style dive as they would be, say, maybe Donghack Viper. So I think, actually, I'm Timeless to finish last, Virtus Pro third, and then SSG beat Fnatic. Finish top.
Yeah, I think Virtus Pro have like a certain style to them. They're like they're pretty good. I think actually. Like
I agree.
Virtus Pro is probably better than Timeless.
The problem is with VP is actually everyone hypes them from scrims, but if you look at officials, that roster has shit the bed so many times. It's unbelievable, you know.
Well, they were 2 up against ENCE.
Yeah, and then they choked against like. Did they not? Who did they? I guess it was like Ataraxia was the roster that they had before. I guess that was like slightly different, right? But they didn't even make it out of groups in OWCS against like fucking a Peach team or something.
No, was it Super Shy maybe?
No, EXO got eliminated by Super. I don't know. Yeah, EXO.
Also, the question of do we think like Infected's an upgrade over Aerial, which I think it is. Infected plays like everything. I think Aerial's more limited and.
But I don't know if this is the same argument we had with ENCE, where like, and even to Virtus Pro, right? Is it actually better just to suck up the fact that you're going to be shit at some comps if you're not one of these teams who can field a Toronto or Crazy Raccoon style roster where we can play every comp? Well, actually, fuck it. We need something we're really good at. We need to be able to take maps somehow. Being okay at everything is pretty bad if you're going to play against a team like even SSG would be better at all comps than them. Like if I'm that Timeless, how do I draft versus SSG? How do I try and find my way through that series? I think it's really tough.
Am I right in saying that a lot of the hype around Virtus Pro is because of their double flex stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a roster that could also, like, you know, aside from all the shitting the bed in their officials before, like it could also just fall apart in the face of hero bans, right?
100%. You ban a Lowry one map, then they're fucked. And then the next map, you ban Brig, and you just pick Dive, which they always swap Brig against. And all of a sudden now he's back on Lucio. And then you've got 40% of the series without them being able to play their comp. Maybe you save those bans for Hybrid and like push.
Even take Ram away or something.
But that's where the protect bans come into play as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's like things they can do against it.
Well, they have to get it right with the maps as well, because one thing that's true about this comp, because I think Virtus Pro know this already, right? Because they only play the double flex on certain maps already.
Like Icon and Midtown and stuff.
Exactly. So they need to be able to protect. I mean, I guess it will line up, right? Because they can... Oh, they lose the previous map.
Pick Midtown.
Pick Midtown. I want to ban first. I'm protecting support, and I've got my comp. So
are there any DPS or tank picks that are like integral to what they do?
I think Sigma's pretty.
Yeah, Rajaro can only play Sigma and Ram, so you can also target ban. Like if you ban Sigma, just play Mauga, and then he's fucked because you just, and then, I mean, what we did sometimes was we would ban Ram and just pick Ryan against the Sigma, and then he was just equally fucked, you know? So you can abuse the tank, you can abuse the supports. I think that is a team that needs to figure out how to deal with hero bans for sure.
Or also, we said it last time, but if they can learn to deal with dive as well more effectively, that could also solve quite a few of their problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder to learn to deal with dive while simultaneously learning to deal with the hero bans that are adding more pressure to that at the same time. It's a lot of points of failure all at once. I will say that team, you know, I'm not sure if they've announced it or not, but I've heard it through the grapevine. And by grapevine, I mean the guys told me. I think they're being coached by the king of angles themselves.
True.
They so you know they're playing a comp that is very angle centric, you know, lots of side fighting taking place, lots of positioning your heroes accurately, and they're getting Smash on board for EWC. So that's going to be an actual difference maker, I want to say. You know, having the actual king of angle gaming on side, shouting at them for 5 hours a day about how they're standing a few too many steps to the left or whatever, that could be the difference maker. You know, they could have dive solved come the event because you know they've got the heavy hitters. Yeah, no, now they've got better angles. They've got like the king of it.
And to be fair, when I was watching Virtus Pro, I did think they're just like a few degrees off dealing with all these dives. So maybe they've cracked it.
Yeah, no, it's like if Galar was just a couple of steps to the left. Sure.
I do think that is the group of depth. Like just the average of that group is like the most like good. I think you know the top isn't as good as like maybe a Falcons or a Crazy Raccoon, but the bottom is really high. I think in that group, like in the other groups, I'm like, oh, this team's definitely, you know, getting knocked out. But this one, it could be Virtus Pro or Timeless, and then 1 and 2 could be SSG or Fnatic. I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, should we explore the SSG Fnatic one? Because I think, obviously, there's an element of bias, I think, in this call. But everyone talks about the Korean teams being unbeatable post their Dallas success. If everyone thinks Fnatic are the most reachable of the Korean teams, the most exploitable maybe as well with like hero bans and stuff compared to the other rosters. Is there a counter argument here that actually, especially on dive, they're just so good?
I think the Donghack factor is pretty scary.
And that it would just be too much. You say the map pool's dive favored as well. Is it just going to be a tough one to draft around, even with the bans, even
so this is where this comes into factor, right? The first map in this group stage is RNG. It just gets given to you.
It's always tough.
I feel like this kind of like sucks for SSG. So if they get like Ilios, right, they're probably good, or they're probably bad. They probably lose the series, to be honest. But if they get Lijiang, then they probably win the series. So it's hard to predict right now. But I do think the Donghack factor is pretty big. I think Donghack's good. If they could sort out how to play dive, right, and then draft dive maps, I think it's not easy. It's not easy. I think I'll go with Fnatic winning over SSG. I'll go with Fnatic 1, SSG 2.
I'll go SSG first. Why not? I'll do that. I'll be brave.
So then it's up to X and Max to really decide who gets first.
I must put SSG first. You know, I've got to defend the boys.
I'm also SSG. I think Fnatic.
I'm struggling to believe
this. I think you know the conversation we had last week about Bleed Esports, where once upon a time Bleed Esports took 2 maps off FTG, at which point they were crowned the 5th best team in the world forever, and they were going to beat all the European and North American teams. And people have really overblown this. I think the same thing is sort of true with Fnatic, in the sense that they had that 1 week where they had good results. But outside that 1 week where they had good results, they have not had good results. Even the exact week afterwards where they played the same teams again, they suddenly didn't look as good on dive. They struggled. They started playing all these random comps. They seemed completely lost. And while they did have that one super high peak, which proves they have a super high peak, they've only done it once for 1 week of the year so far. I mean, if they do it this week, that could be a good time to do it. But I think the only player who's consistently performed in all of them, I think, was Donghack. I think a lot of the others, like Knife and Viper, really went missing. Again, I think they're super talented players. But there's a question of, like, will they actually be able to put it together for this week at EWC?
Well, I feel like one
now.
Oh, I need to redo my power ranking. Actually, I need to put Fnatic above SSG because I have just realized that I was shitting on the backline before about how they've gone and got Lijaegon and Izzyaki, but these are actually integral components of the SSG kryptonite. Because it's actually very well documented that Chris cannot beat these motherfuckers. It doesn't matter how good or bad you think they are, he cannot beat these motherfuckers. It does not matter. So I'm putting Fnatic on top, not because I genuinely believe it, but just because those guys beat Chrissy a bunch last year, and I don't even think it was because of those two at all. But let's forget.
Yeah, I think it definitely wasn't.
Real test. Whether it was Smurf or whether it was Lijaegon and Izzyaki.
Was it Smurf Decay or was it Lijaegon Izzyaki?
I think Lijaegon, Izzyaki. No, I think Lijaegon was actually very useful. Lijaegon was always really good against us.
Yeah, Lucio is always very free versus your comps, and he was the guy to take advantage of that. Yeah. Then you'd go up against some team which just had like a land crab Lucio jerking off in a corner while Hattie runs down his team.
You can't argue with the results. So that puts us at a stalemate.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that I felt with like narrative over like Fnatic was I see this like comment section loads and like our videos or like on Reddit where it's like, well, how can like the Western teams didn't take a single map against Korea? Like how can you put them above like Fnatic and Zeta? But it's like, I mean, you're right, but they had a lot more chances to take maps. They've played like fucking like 7 series at this point against them. Like they played like in the round robin, like in the group stages at the lands. So like, yeah, those times where these teams like took maps, okay, yes, true, we didn't take maps, but we only got like 1 chance at it. Whereas like if you play against someone in the region more, I feel like you're more likely to, if you play someone 5 times, you're more likely to take maps rather than if you only play them once. That seems like a mathematical fair assessment.
There's also a seriousness element, right? Because you bear in mind there was 1 month-long group stage where all the good teams, where it was like top 8 out of 9 teams qualify, which is pretty generous if only 1 team gets eliminated out of a month-long group stage. And then they did a fucking seeding tournament. Then they did the knockouts. And then they had the Asia major as well, like the Asia LAN. So there was actually 4 iterations. And all the high-profile games, Fnatic lost.
But during all that time, there was 1 week where Donghack looked like the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. So, if we can do the same here, this Fnatic
though. Unfortunately, in the same way, there's an interesting thing, because as much as Lijaegon might be the kryptonite for SSG, SSG might also be the kryptonite for Donghack. Donghack might have been in the form of his life, but then he loads up on Ilios. Donghack, we need you to go Doom. No, I can't go Doom against these guys on this map. Not again. Put Hawk in.
So it was just Donghack. It wasn't the rest of the Falcons core because they lost against them. It was just Donghack.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? We played against Proper and Stalker. We got fucked. But we played against Donghack. Last time we played him, we made him get subbed out.
We can put SSG 1.
Yes.
All right. He swung it. And are we all Virtus Pro over Timeless?
I think I'll go Virtus Pro.
I think it can be close though. I think there's like it's the same thing as what Max was saying against TM. I think there's enough factors where there's an upset there. I think
this is 100% the closest 3rd, 4th battle. I think.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. And then we've touched on a lot of the team news already in terms of Twisted Minds making changes, ENCE making changes. And then I think the only other one then to talk about is the Timeless situation, which is obviously a mess, really. I can bring up the latest tweet. I don't know. The whole thing's very messy in terms of... Obviously, Timeless sponsored what was FMCL Seeker's team as they entered into the Face It playoffs to qualify for the Esports World Cup, at which point Timeless did the thing. They did the thing. Congratulations. Because this is what a lot of teams do in other games. A lot of orgs do, or like bedroom orgs or whatever you want to call them, is they gamble on a team to make the major. And if they make it to the major, they get all the money, the prize share of the big prize pool, etc. So it's a really common thing to do. And Timeless did it, and they gambled on the right team. They managed to even get it in and amongst all the other legitimate business orgs coming in and getting teams. So they get their team. Timeless do the thing. Seeker makes it to LAN. Cheers all round. Everyone's celebrating. And then Timeless, reality hits them. And they're now not sure whether they want to continue supporting the team or not, because they don't want the Timeless brand to be representing a team at the Esports World Cup, which leads to some kind of internal conflict, which I feel like I've read the tweets, but it was so back and forth and confusing in terms of who actually owns what and what's shared. But there was some internal dispute, and the ownership changed away from Chase. Chase left the org, and then loads of other people left the org, because I think, from what I understand, Chase is the charismatic leader of the group. So Chase left, and loads of other people supported Chase's decision not to support the Esports World Cup, so also stepped back from Timeless, leaving the remaining owners in charge of Timeless. But then this changed as well, and they gave the org back to Chase, at which point Chase said, we're going to continue Timeless, but we're not supporting the FMCL roster. We're just going to continue, and I know they've now signed like a Calling All Heroes team, which is what this tweet is. But so it's just a mess. It's just an absolute mess of what should have been a conversation that happened way before Timeless won third place.
I think that there's more to it than what's described, as if it wasn't already messy enough with what just came out of your mouth. But I think there's even more to it as well, where it's like, I think because there's multiple owners involved, I think the person that might have the majority share, maybe they're contributing more financially at the moment than other people. He wanted to have a roster at the Esports World Cup for sure. Because I know that I was talking with him about him using, like us using his team's branding separate from Timeless for EWC. But then eventually he got cold on us. And I'm pretty sure what's wound up happening there is that one of the owners, because of the conflict that you were describing at Timeless, where people are a bit on the fence about being at EWC, this guy thought, well, you know what I'll do? I'll just use the Timeless roster. I'll take the Timeless roster and have them represent my personal brand rather than the overall Timeless brand, because already we're having trouble with the Timeless brand. People aren't sure whether they want to be in or out, stuff like that. So what I'll do is I'll just make it easy. I'll just leave Timeless and take the roster and have them represent my brand. This might be a gross oversimplification, might be a terrible misrepresentation of events. So I'm really sorry if this is a complete fucking kappa story.
Don't worry about that, mate. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, we're not here about the truth. But I think that there's an element of that in it as well, where one of the owners, someone that was contributing financially to Timeless, wanted his own brand represented at EWC. And a big reason as to why this is all imploded is because he's decided that the Timeless roster, which he is at least a partial owner of, would be a good fit for his personal brand.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, good luck fucking untangling this web of nonsense. Like,
I don't think we have the info to make like a judgment.
We do.
Well, judgment. Make a judgment.
We can make a judgment.
Come on.
One thing you can 100% make a judgment about is the fact that so much of this unfolded on Twitter, which is,
I don't know why
not
that
the normal place. Do you see the owners of Toronto? Do they discuss these things on Twitter?
If you do something virtuous but you don't tweet about it, did it really happen? That's the question, you know? Like, that's like ultimately, like, I
think
everything has to go into it. Has anyone ever boycotted the EWC and not tweeted about it? Has it actually happened yet? Like, I don't know.
I don't think it's just about virtue signaling. I think a lot of the Timeless owners are quite young. Like, I think they might all be younger than us. I mean, it's like, I just looked at Chase's Twitter. He's 19. The guy that I was talking to, this other like owner, I think he's 20 or 21 years old. So it's like, these are just like young people having a conflict that's sort of like bled out into the public, you know? They're all very dissatisfied with each other for one reason or another. And it just kind of gets messy in public as a result. And it's a very, I mean, Timeless is an org, but I mean, it's like, you know, it's a bit of like a kappa org in the sense that it's like, it's just a bunch of people putting some money in. There's not a lot of like professionalism involved in it, I suspect. So when things are going to fall apart in this way, where it's like, oh, you know, maybe one of the owners is poaching the roster, maybe people have super different opinions about whether or not they should or shouldn't be attending the tournament. I feel it's only natural, given what the team is or what the organization is, that it's going to spew out onto Twitter and have people flinging shit at each other.
What I was expecting will happen is Timeless makes it, and some team buys them out. That's a partnered org, you know, and they pay Timeless some amount. Thank you for making it.
Was too late.
And we'll take your team.
Yeah, by the time you qualified, a partner org doesn't really get a meaningful benefit.
I see.
Because
it was like
the
a
club
deadline
slots
anymore, right? Yeah.
It's actually such a shame because we could have, like, the teams that qualified after the fact could have secured a lot more money.
They could have had more,
teams.
right?
Yeah.
But there's just no incentive for those club teams to sign you after the deadline. So that's a real problem with the way that they've formatted the qualifiers, how they've had you qualify after the dedeadline. It's a real shame.
So you basically have to gamble on teams that made it, like NRG did and like TSM
did.
They're gambling, and because we didn't get them enough slots, the gamble did not work out.
I feel like what I don't understand is why do they sign FMCL if they don't want to go to the World Cup? Because is it you just doing it for the promotion of the Face It League, which got about 7 viewers? Like,
I think they would have. I think they would have gone. I think they would have gone as Timeless.
It was just these extra circumstances.
It sounds like
so one of them not tweet that they didn't read the rules.
But
there was a tweet from one of them saying that, we expected to qualify and get picked up by a team, but
I think I do remember reading this as well. Yeah, and they didn't read the rules about the deadline.
Situation where they didn't read the rules, you know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I can't remember who it was, but someone tweeted about, like, the original intention was we would sign this team and essentially just flip it for a profit, right? They'd sell the team onto some org.
And we wouldn't have to go to EWC, so and we were,
get the money and don't have to directly support EWC. But they didn't read the rules about the deadline, so once they had got the spot, they realised there was essentially no one to buy the spot from them, and then were stuck with this moral decision, or this dilemma that they solved via Twitter. But it still feels, it just feels, I mean, to be honest, it's a lot of what Hunter said, right? It feels really amateur, but this is also a bedroom org
run by amateur.
But run by amateurs, like not even... So, yeah. I mean, I guess I just feel, the people who suffer, again, I think are the players who are now just left in this limbo thing where their org is, they were going to get supported by Timeless, presumably financially in some form, whether that's in like direct salary or at least like expenses or something, or I don't know. And now they're just left in the lurch, right? And now they're left in this weird situation where they now don't have an org, and they potentially even turned down other offers to take this Timeless offer, presumably at the time, right? Or maybe
I heard they're going under a new name with like a decent sponsorship.
Okay.
I figured it's up to them, but I wouldn't feel bad for the players. I feel bad for all the people that put time into Timeless and, let their team go to Esports World Cup and now are no longer affiliated with Timeless for one reason or another. I don't know why, but I think the players are under good care. From what I've heard. It could also be wrong, but
it's all right.
We're just spreading misinformation here, so I figured
we do, baby.
We love misinformation, but all of this is true and a fact, is my understanding.
Print it. We're literally going to print it. I mean, that's the important thing, I think, for me, is that the players aren't the ones who get screwed over in all of this. Because the players...
that'll be fine.
Okay, that's okay then. As long as Admiral is okay, then I am okay.
Really? It's all about Ollie?
It is. Yeah. All about Ollie.
Big up, Ollie.
Always has been, Max. Always has been. So then, is there any other roster news that we've not touched on? I think we covered it. We got the Twisted Minds signings.
I think teams were allowed to pick up players for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Fnatic did, and then which other Korean team picked up?
I guess
players?
Fearless was picked up to Zeta.
Yeah, Fearless was picked up to Zeta, right?
Which on paper obviously feels like a pretty good signing. Fills presumably Burner's holes. I don't know why I said it like that.
Yeah,
Bernard was like the glue for that team, right? It's like Bernard was like
I think
insane on Orisa. Like he was hard. I think Bernard on Sigma, Orisa, and Zarya has always been so solid.
His team looks really good, actually, the little bit he played in Korea as well. Like I think the problem is it's just Winston. Whenever they went to a Winston map, suddenly Burner would be playing Winston against Junbin or something, or Smurf, and it would just be like, this guy clearly is not a Winston player.
Yeah, so I think that's like the perfect pickup for them, right? They just need a Winston
as long as
guy.
Fearless isn't washed, right?
You can just put him in on the Winston map after bans go through. So it's a really good fit for them. It just upgrades them flat out.
As long as he's still got it, right? Because all the things we said about Team China presumably also apply to Fearless as well.
Yeah. But I feel like all these oldie players, like on their like signature character, they're probably still really insane, right? It's just the new characters and Mauga and everything that they're a question mark on. But if I'm like Kaluj, I know he's going to be good at Sigma, but he's going to be the worst Mauga I've ever seen, right? It's like Fearless. I know he's going to be good at Winston. Boucher is going to be good at Winston. But, I think these other characters, like the new things or maybe new metas, they're like they're probably gonna be not as good. They're probably gonna be pretty bad.
And then one thing we did forget to mention, I think it's already been mentioned on various streams and everything, but obviously going into the Esports World Cup, lots of teams have utilized a boot camp. I think SSG are going to Korea, Virtus Pro are going to Korea, Peps are going, Gaming Gladiators are going to Korea, Twisted Minds are remoting to Korea. Are you guys going anywhere, Cass?
By the time this is released, what day will it be? No, we're going to do a Korea boot camp. We are going to do a Korea boot camp. We were planning to go to Europe to account for jet lag and everything, but then all these European fucks, they decided to go boot camp in Korea. So if we go to Europe, there's literally, like, we'd be scrimming ENCE, like 2 blocks a day. It'd be the ENCE, Toronto Playhouse. So we're going to do a boot camp in Korea as well.
ENCE are so fucked, by the way.
ENCE is really fucked because now we've also...
They have no one to scrim.
Timeless. No one to scrim.
They can double block against timeless every day on ping. That's it. There's genuinely no one. TM don't scrim them. Every other European team's in Korea.
I think TSM is still scrimming. TSM is still scrimming.
Right. So they could TSM is timeless.
Yep.
They'll be okay. But ENCE is fucked. Or they're going to go with a lot of confidence because their spreadsheet's going to be unbelievably green,
Oh my God. So, we're also going to be doing Korea boot camp. I feel like especially when you're the best in a region, I feel like it helps a lot. We're only scrimming EU teams right now on ping. And I feel like it kind of screws your
muscle memory and stuff.
Muscle memory 100%. If you're only scrimming on ping until the tournament comes around. So that's why we were planning to do EU boot camp, just so we didn't have to deal with the jet lag. We have offices in Europe, but we've decided to, chill out and take the Korea boot camp because there's no other option if you want to compete, to be honest.
Do you know where you're staying in Korea?
I do know, but...
Is it the same place as everyone else?
No. We're going to a different place. Oh. We got a deal.
Do you know whereabouts? Like in the city?
Yeah, we're in Gangnam.
Okay. I know where you will be then, probably.
I think you would know, Chris. I think you would know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess the silver lining for ENCE is while their scrim bubble is ruined.
It's tiny. Like this.
They're in a group with M80 whose scrim bubble is worse.
There is no bubble.
There is no bubble. The bubble has burst. So they actually still have scrim bubble advantage over M80. It will just be when they approach some of the other teams. Do you think this is going to become the standard then? So once we get to, say, Stockholm, the same thing's going to happen. There's going to be some kind of Korea boot camp for all of the teams. This will just become almost the new norm for the big events.
The only thing is if Stockholm has the same format as Dallas, if you go to Korea, you don't have any teams to scrim because
they would have finished.
Let's say Fnatic and Zeta don't make it. They probably just take the weeks off leading up to Stockholm anyway. Yeah. China will be scrimming. So you might actually, right now, even there's like a few like mixed teams. Like I don't know if you've got any scrimmers versus like Mag's team and stuff, Toronto, but like that's like a pretty reasonable like roster. They're looking at the scrim. So actually you've got like 5 or 6 scrim partners in Korea. Stockholm, it might not be that many.
Yeah, no, I think there's such a big bubble. I think for Stockholm, I mean, the reason Falcons came to 1A early is because they can only scrim Crazy Raccoon every day, and they want to do free scrim blocks, so that doesn't make any sense. So I think depends on the amount of slots Korea gets, but I think if it's 2 or 3, I think going to Korea and only getting 2 or 3 scrim partners is probably not worth it.
Well, actually,
so it depends on how many teams there are. And also, I think Esports World Cup is a lot bigger than Stockholm. So a lot of more teams are willing to shell out for it in a way. I think Korea boot camp's always expensive. So I don't know if everybody's going to shell out for pre-Stockholm, if it's going to be as big as Dallas, you know? If it's like significantly bigger than Dallas, I think it's worth it. Otherwise, it's definitely not worth it, right?
Actually,
I think
won't they just come here? As in the Korean team will just come to Europe,
like
right?
EU boot camp.
And then maybe Toronto could make the same decision.
Yeah, I think there's no way the boot camp would happen in Korea because, like, I think if all of the international teams flew over to Korea, I think Blizzard would almost be unwilling to pay for all the flights to get them to Stockholm afterwards. You know, in this case, like EWC has like Oh, genuinely. I mean, it's like they make pack players pay out of pocket to get their whole roster to the event. You know, like they're hyper budget with this sort of stuff at this point. So I think EWC, they've got like the unlimited money tap. You know, you can fly your team over to Korea, and then EWC will cover your flight to Saudi and then back to your home country. I don't think Blizzard would want to fly everyone at the tournament from Korea because it's far more expensive than having all the European teams just take the like little domestic routes. I think it's much more likely that you'd see
Stockholm or you know, London to Stockholm. What's cheaper for Blizzard?
Exactly. But you might see boot camps in Europe come that event. Although I think even that is a lot less likely, to be honest, because like the financial reward for it is non-existent compared to the reward for organizations right now. People actually want to win at the EWC because you get a meaningful amount of money. Stockholm's going to come around, and it's probably going to be another dog shit prize pool. You know, like it's definitely not going to be EWC level. I think it's unrealistic to expect EWC levels of prizing, which isn't even that insane, right? $1 million prize pool is not that insane in the history of Overwatch. But with what was shown at Dallas, I think we're never going to see $1 million prize pool again from a Blizzard-hosted event.
Unless they make a Mercy skin.
If they make a Mercy skin, then we will see $1 million prize pool.
Let's do it.
But they would not give 25% of the Mercy skin to esports
10%.
Ooh, even 10% I'd be happy with.
Yeah,
they get a good skin at least, not a Sonic Hanzo.
Genuinely, like if they gave that shit to esports pros instead of cancer research, there'd be smiles on this podcast, sure.
What's more important, a bunch of pro players who refuse to get a job or cancer research?
Curing cancer, well, I know which one I'd choose.
I support breast cancer. I'm on the right side of history.
Thank you.
I feel like every episode...
Tweet about it. Are you virtuous?
No, I support.
Wait, I'm checking your timeline right now, Max. I can't see anything about it.
Yeah, well, I'm on the side of the cancer. So
there you go.
Yes, Max.
I feel like I feel like every episode I sort of come in with an idea of a few people are going to take some shots today, you know, like in terms of these are the people who might be catching some bullets. Cancer research was not on the agenda today for someone who might catch a stray in this podcast, but I know a lot of the people working on it.
We go where no one else is brave enough to go.
A lot of the people working on it normally have this on in the lab as well, so they'll get the message. They'll get the message. So, unless there's any other major charities we want to go after, I think it might be time for a quiz.
All right, so we'll do a quiz today. You will probably see this on Overwatch Esports Twitter in the next few weeks, because that is just their thing at the moment, is they watch this segment and then just steal it horrendously.
Oh, wait, can I do... I'm going to do an outfit change for this one.
Oh,
he's going to do an outfit change for this one. Hopefully, the outfit change will be... why does he go off camera for it?
You could have done
This is where the money... Yeah.
I saw glimpse.
Yes.
Wait, there we go.
Now, monetization.
We have been demonetized, but it's been worth it, okay?
Oh.
Quiz head. Look, this guy is a quiz
head.
Hopefully my producer can edit out my nipples so we don't get demonetized.
All right.
He's got it.
You just have to have a black bar there.
Put the Uncoachable logo over my nipples, I guess, would be the most sensible thing.
That would be the respectful thing to do.
You have to have the bell logo. You have to have the bell logo.
All right, okay. We are going to a World Cup. At the World Cup, a lot of different nationalities are represented. Because Chase is not going to his, we're going to cross out Ukraine from the list. But what we're going to try and do is name every single country that has a player representing it at the Esports World Cup. I had 21. I now obviously only have 20. So 20 different nationalities are going to the Esports World Cup. Can we name all of them? Let's go start with our guest, as always, and we'll go around in a little circle.
I'll go with South Korea.
Yeah, good shout. 32 South Korean players. 33% of them are of the
less than
overall.
Overwatch League.
That's quite good, actually. Quite winnable.
North American.
You
Not
mean
just American, I guess. Yeah.
USA?
Yeah, USA.
Okay, yeah. Second, 14% of them.
I'm going to go United Kingdom.
Yeah, United Kingdom has 5 players going.
But maybe not anymore, right?
Wait. Oh, yeah, Crispy was on the list. So.
Copy, yeah.
Let's do Canada.
Yeah, Canada. Only one Canadian going.
Seeker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Danish.
Yes, 3 of them.
Naga's going,
Yeah,
right?
3 Danes.
Swedish.
Yep, there is 2 Swedes.
A big 2.
Let's do Australian.
Yeah, there is 3 Australians, somehow more represented than Sweden.
German.
1 German.
I think I know who. France.
Yeah, we have. Unfortunately, we have 2 French players going.
I'll go Taiwan.
That's
no
insane.
comment.
What a take.
There is no Taiwanese players.
Wait, there's none? No.
And you're out of the quiz.
And this isn't even me getting political, because I'm not counting them as Chinese players. So no, there's just no Taiwanese players.
Finnish.
Yeah, we have a few Finns. We have 5 of them. Yeah, well, kind of.
Austrian.
We have 1 Austrian.
I think we know
I need to redeem myself. I'll go with China.
No, there is Chinese players. 5 of them. You might know who they are.
New Zealand.
1 New Zealand. That could have been a good last pick, I reckon. No one.
It'll be Colour Hex. Yeah. What countries haven't we said? Oh, Spain.
Yeah, Spain. Actually, quite 3 Spanish players, including the best player in the West. So that's pretty good going. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more countries to go.
How am I already out? This is because I'm not in Europe anymore.
Yeah, no, it's like all Euros, and it's just
Switzerland.
A mess.
No Switzerland.
Oh wait, I know.
And it's only 3 of them are European.
Oh wow!
We've forgotten about
Thai.
I'm terrible.
Thai, good shout. We have 4 Thai players going.
Brazilian.
Yeah, Brazilian, the 3rd most representative country, actually. 6 of them. More Brazilians than Chinese going.
Just like half count? Like half one country, half the other country? Or is it just what they're listed on Wikipedia?
Yeah. I didn't do background checks.
Damn.
Chris went around asking for passport proof from all the players before conducting the quiz.
Because I was gonna say Japanese because Finn is half Japanese, but that's cheating. So if there's no Japanese players then. Estonia? For
yes,
Admiral?
good shout.
That was a good shout.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah.
All right, so there's 2 more European nations that are being neglected here.
Yeah.
I know. I've got 1 of them.
One of them you'll never get, but
never get.
I think I know both.
We can't say Israel here, can we? You know, like that's not happening. So let Saudi.
Saudi, yes, there is of course 5 Saudi players going to Saudi.
Romanian.
Good shout, Romania, Sky Ripper. 2 more countries to go.
Nah, I'm out. I don't got anything.
There's still 1 European country.
Yeah.
Just guess a random one.
I think I know it.
Spin the wheel.
Give me Lithuania.
No Lithuanians.
No Lithuania.
Like Family Feud or something.
Let's see it on the board.
Let's see on the board. Lithuania.
You're open to just go for it, X, because I'm.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm just nervous here killing the flow.
Oh wait. No, I've talked myself out of it because he's not going.
That's cool. Convincing.
Well, I was gonna say Wales because I thought Ramon would be counted slightly differently, but I don't think he's going, right? Because he was.
I think he is going.
That's just the UK, right?
He is going, but he counts as UK.
Okay.
He's not on the list either, but he will be. All right. Okay.
Is the other country what South American country?
No, Asian. Plays for Bleed Esports, I think.
Not Thai, not Japanese. What's the other nationality on that team?
Is it somewhere Unter's been recently?
And it's like I feel like it's someone that I should probably know, but and it's not Japanese, right? Like he gets Japanese and he said no.
I can tell you the name of the player, Lumi.
I know them. Singapore.
There you go, Singapore.
There you go.
And then the last player is Level 1 Krupp.
No,
Bulgaria, right? Or Hungary?
Not Bulgaria. Hungary.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think technically half Austrian, half Hungarian or something like that. So, but for the sake of the quiz, we're classing as Hungarian. I hope that doesn't offend. So there you go. There's everybody that's going. Isn't that nice?
Well, I undeniably lost that quiz, so I remember last time I flamed Inter, but this time I didn't want to, and with good cause because I got smoked.
He's the goat.
No, I don't have the T-shirt, but I'm a quiz head. Like
the quiz head.
He's been on a roll recently.
It's actually crazy. Like we get Jamie on, and he's just like fucking cheating using Wikipedia during the quiz.
He's actually Googling it on the quiz, dude. That guy's
actually so shameless.
Yeah, it actually is.
Credit to him for just saying it though as well. I think like lots of people normally when people cheat, the idea is you get away with it.
Okay, no way anyone on this podcast has used Google before. I refuse to believe it.
It's actually like pathetic if you're using Google to cheat in a fucking podcast quiz.
A podcast quiz. But with how many people stick to it?
My point is, the idea of cheating is that normally you get away with it, not you cheat and then just go, I'm cheating at this, right?
I think it's more respectable to admit it, to be honest. I'd say it's more pathetic if you're cheating in the Uncoachable quiz and not admitting it. But I think like with the amount of time it takes for us to answer these fucking questions, like there's no way that anyone on the show is cheating. What was that?
Dude, they're streaming. We've got one of the loudest teams, I'd say.
That's why his team is good. They play ranked and they have fun. Or they stream. They're not even playing Overwatch.
No, but they off-roll. They only off-roll.
It's better than playing fucking deadlocked. Like
that's true. I'll take that. Wait, is that name unleaked?
Huh?
Isn't Deadlock like under wraps?
I mean, the existence of the title with that name.
Wait, is that an exclusive? Have you dropped the exclusive here on Uncoachable? The announcement?
It's just no way, dude. I saw it on Twitter. Like, Valve's new game is called Deadlock. Reddit's like, no way.
Uncoachable exclusive.
Uncoachable exclusive.
You heard it here first.
Dude, we did
it. We've actually had a long list of games developers come to us and ask us to announce games on the podcast, but this is the first one we've actually gone for.
Yeah, no, it's Super Vibe you got to watch out for. That's the I think it's like Project Loki. I think they picked that as the name.
Yeah, my brother's the number one player in the world. Watches Twitch stream on it.
Is he?
Yeah, he's been grinding like him for ages. He's actually like unironically like top 2 in the world at the game.
Is he streaming it?
He's spending all his time getting a job.
Is he streaming it or is he just going?
Yeah, but last week when it came out on its little week, he was streaming it every day. So that's it. If you ever want to happen to Chipser, he didn't get a job. He didn't enter the real world. He just plays Super Vibe a lot now.
He just started playing games off stream instead of on stream.
Yeah, he thought it'd be better to just be a gamer and make no money. So
that's actually really wise. Still living at home, then I figure.
Yeah. I mean, all my family's super pleased about it. So
pick up Philip.
All right, but he is 100% in the Overwatch League. So
yeah, I mean, I've heard that before. Every Sunday at dinner, he's always telling me about it. Still to this day. How many games did you win? Okay, Phil.
All right. So, client of the week time.
All right.
Oh, Chrissy's segment.
But first,
anyone got anyone?
But first, I've actually got another outfit change.
Whoa!
He's got another t-shirt.
Nice.
Get those nips out. Get those nips out.
God.
Look at that physique.
Oh, Jesus, what I would do to wake up next to that man.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
but are these exclusive for the fans on Patreon?
No, you gotta buy them.
You got a premium SSS tier to get the shirts.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you added that extra S there, dude. That was getting dangerous.
Like, yeah. I'll say it, and I'll probably be wrong, but I'm pretty sure by the time this podcast launches, by the time it's live and by the time you're watching this, the merch shop will be available, and there'll almost definitely be some kind of discount code for our Patreon subscribers. So if you want a discount code, if you want the discount code and you want the merch, the Patreon subscription actually pays for itself. So think about it that way.
You should just have a tier in the Patreon where you get a shirt every month that you're subscribed to the tier.
Actually, good shout. The $100.
My God, $100. You should get a shirt. I don't know how much these shirts are on the Uncoachable shop, but I'm sure that it's less than the $100.
You know, with Joe Biden's economy, it's not going to be cheap, is it?
Unfortunately, they're all $100, Max. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, $100 and you'll get an Uncoachable.
That is premium material he's wearing on his body right there. Pure eco-friendly, environmental, recyclable cotton. That's what I heard.
Yep.
Probably the finest material. All right, okay. Stitched? For sure.
Yeah, I made these myself.
Yeah. Love. I was going to say, when you see the Bangladeshi child stitched "help me" into the label at the back, don't worry about that. But the rest of it, all good.
That's just an inside joke.
Is there not something fitting about some kind of child slave labor and they're having to make a top that has an arrow pointing to them saying client of the week while they make it?
For sure.
No,
I don't think so. To be honest,
no,
I wouldn't go there.
I feel like that's the textbook definition of irony. I think.
I mean, surely this is still the second least edgy thing we said on this podcast. So
I don't think the slave laborers look at the shirt and think, "Damn, maybe I am the client after all." Buy the t-shirts, though, fellas.
Keep buying them, or start buying them.
No comment.
All right.
That's very Bell Fiber Zone of you. Like,
that's it.
Bell 5 Zone.
Shout out Bell.
This episode is sponsored by the Toronto Defiant. Or just this segment, actually.
No, he took the Toronto Defiant shirt off to put on the client. We are unsponsoring this segment. We are not associated with it.
There will be a tweet out from Toronto.
You're not associated with this segment? I'm looking in the background. I'm seeing a big bell. That's all I see.
There we go. All right. You guys got any clients?
All right. I've got one, but someone else can open the floor. Maybe there is none.
I don't know if I have any, actually. I think it's actually been a relatively quiet week.
I think we've already mentioned Skeng and his tweet about wanting to kill Kellen.
Yeah, that was a good
how
one.
everybody wanted to kill Kellen.
It wasn't just
me.
Everybody wanted to kill Kellen.
It's okay to want to kill people if enough people are on your side, is my understanding.
As long as you're still friends with them, you can kill them.
True. All right. Okay. So then I wanted to, obviously, if you've been on Twitter, you've seen a lot of discourse over the boycotting of EWC and stuff. And this is not necessarily my time to make a point on this. But one thing, who's an ex-Overwatch commentator personality, is Big Hungry Phil. And Big Hungry Phil has been tweeting a lot. And then I thought there was some of these which that I was really interested in. So I think we should do some of the tweets on us. This is actually this is the last tweet. So we'll bring up one of the other ones first. I think you'll notice there's a few tweets. I think like one of my favorites was the one where he says, I'm coming off Twitter for a little bit, and then I'll let you know when I'm back. And then it took him about 12 hours, and then he was back on Twitter again. So that was a good little classic break.
There we go.
I think that there was one that I've got that that I think I need to, maybe I didn't link, but there was, when the esports announcement of the League of Legends casters came out, Big Hungry Phil made sure to let everybody know that he will be unfollowing these people who did it, because nothing says there is a more egregious, there's nothing worse than being unfollowed by Big Hungry Phil because you've taken a casting job. But then there was also a tweet which he tweeted, and I felt like he kind of revealed something here. And what he says, this is the other one. It says that, since you've become a lot more outspoken since you've quit esports, what's happened? Well, one of the things I was taught when I was getting into esports was that I have to, I swear, you need to click on the tweet. I swear this tweet that I'm linking isn't the right one. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And he says, one of the things that I was told was to keep a squeaky clean timeline and don't talk about important shit. And I have years of pent-up frustration. But to me, what this says is, when you were trying to be in esports, you were willing to not speak up for what you believed in because you felt it would be a good gig. And now that you're no longer trying to get a job in esports, you are actually like attacking those who are doing the same thing, who are not standing up for their beliefs in order to get a job. So I just felt like this was one of those tweets where I feel like when he tweeted it, he didn't quite see how hypocritical it made him think. And I think that for people who want to boycott the EWC, I don't think it's necessarily a terrible position to take. If you want to go and watch EWC, I also don't think that makes you a shitty person either necessarily. But I think when you're someone like Big Hungry Phil, who's now making your entire personality about shitting on the EWC, whilst also admitting in your past that you were willing to not stand up or speak up about what you believe in, makes you at best a hypocrite and at worst client of the week.
I think I've got immense respect for people that, you know, actually have skin in the game and boycott the EWC.
Yeah.
Like, I have so much respect for them. But if you don't have skin in the game, right, it's easy to tweet and type. And I think, you know, if all of us could get money from you know, sources like last year with the Overwatch League, we would. Right? And I think that goes for like all the casters, everybody. But there is no money, so you have to take it where you can get it. Right. And I think that's the stance a lot of people that have skin in the game have to take. You know, it's that or get a real job. And, you know, I'm a 27-year-old who still likes Overwatch way too much. So no getting a real job yet.
No, I agree. I think that when I see people who have like anonymous Twitter profiles who don't even have like a picture of their face or their name, like casting judgment on those about like how you're making like a terrible decision, it's like, well, you don't even want enough responsibility in your life where you find out the words that you spend online. So how can you then like project onto people what they should do with their actions, you know? So if you're one of those people like Richard Lewis or whatever who like actively like stood up against it and took a stand at his own detriment, fair enough. But unless you actually were ever in that position, I think that you shouldn't really shit on those that do. Unless you're one of these people that tweeted a lot of stuff about it and then took the money. You played both sides, then those people deserve to be shit on too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've covered this theme a few times in that client of the week at this point, where, you know, it's just like, if you have no skin in the game, it's really easy to just talk a bunch of shit and virtue signal. But, you know, at the end of the day, the only people that are actually like deserving of any respect for it are people that actually make like a genuine sacrifice. If you admit that, you know, you were never in a position to take that money in the first place, it's not like stones from a glass house, but it's sort of just like you're throwing nothing. You know what I mean? Because it's like you've sacrificed nothing. You're proving nothing. It's just your opinion. Whereas, you know, at least like someone like Massa or whatever choosing not to go because he doesn't support Saudi, you know, that makes a lot more that has more weight to it because he was actually going to financially benefit from going, and instead he takes a stance where he actually loses out on something as a result. Whereas for Big Hungry Philip, you know, it's like you were never getting that job offer. So
there's no sacrifice. There's no giving something in exchange. You to stand up for something, you have to sacrifice or take some kind of penance or some kind of penalty for it to be worth something. Yeah. And I think
not to say that there's
in that position.
Not to say that there's nothing wrong with having a stance and like, you know, being some sort of an activist towards something, but, you know, when you start to make it like an almost targeted attack towards people where, you know, it's like you say that the people that are engaging in it are like really wrong for doing so, while simultaneously admitting that in the past you essentially would have done the same thing. That's where it gets to the point of being ridiculous and to the point where you're just definitely a client, because it's like, well, if you were in their position, it sounds like you would have done what they were doing. So what are you saying?
He's big and he's hungry.
And his name's Phil, allegedly.
That's the word on the street.
Yeah, no. Sources.
It's as accurate as anything we've said on this podcast so far, so.
If we got any other nominations?
Feels like it's been a non-clienty week. It's been
quiet here.
I feel like some of the people in the Overwatch discussion chat about the bans need to be called out. There are so many like client takes.
Rush.
We talked about that. I think Rush's take was valid. I'm on Team Rush's side here.
No, because Rush was just equally hypocritical. That's the problem, you know. Rush was acting like he wasn't also just wanting this rule because it benefited his team. 5-man roster wants this rule. That's all it was. And he tweets me like, "Oh,
argument." Let's be honest. I feel like that's
but that's it. Yeah, but then he calls me out for being biased towards because I have a big roster, but he's also biased towards having a roster. He's just a hypocrite, you know? You might be right, but he's a hypocrite, so fine.
I think we should call Majed out for no other reason than he got an airport named after him. This rule overturned solo. So I'm shouting out Majed as client of the week because he made it so we now have to select roster after bans.
Thank you, Majed.
Because he has an airport, he has the power to do so.
He does.
Well, when you have an airport in the Netherlands named after you, Casores, you can make any sort of decisions as well.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just voting him out of jealousy.
Was there anything else, Phil?
Congratulations, Phil.
Yeah?
No, Phil. My man, Phil.
All the way.
All right. A home run.
It's actually two weeks in a row that we're siding with Saudi Arabia for the client of the week, by the way.
Who did we do last week?
Wasn't it those like esports casters or something like that? Like all of the people that were...
No, that was my screen as well. I don't think
wait, we didn't even cover that here?
No.
Oh, I mean, I guess it's not really Overwatch related, so they can't be clients of the week. But
the ones who were against the event, and then a couple of weeks later were like, see you at the World Cup, everybody.
For my mental health, I have to cast this event. Legend, actually.
It sounds like you guys, I was sorry. It sounds like you guys are against hypocrites.
That's
it.
Is
that it? Could be it. Nah, that can't be it. Must be.
We're strongly on the side of the Saudi regime is the takeaway here. It's nothing to do with virtue signaling or hypocrisy or anything like that. It's definitely like a strong political alignment.
That's it.
Something funny, Cass?
Thank you, Bell, for sponsoring this
sarcasm.
This
is one of the Apparently, it's sponsored by the Saudi Arabian regime.
So, all of the previous segments, to be clear, were sponsored by Toronto, Bell, and AMD. This next segment, which is Rank the Guest, not sponsored by any of those.
Nothing to do with
nothing to do with them. So all of these things do not represent those companies or sponsors in any way.
This next segment could be. We'll have to see.
It could take a turn. So we're at Rank the Guests. Let me bring up a scoreboard. So Casores was obviously on before, so it would be a Casores 2 situation. Casores is obviously was quite high to begin with, but plummeted down the rankings.
You got fucked by the inflation.
I got fucked by recency bias.
Whoa.
I feel like
that's exactly what it is, mate.
I will say I feel like last episode was better than this one.
Jamie's?
I didn't drop his previous
drop enough juice, but I feel like it was a good insight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This was decent for like a new era of Uncoachable where we've just run out of juice and all we do is just like wank off about format for an hour of the episode, putting everyone to sleep. But as far as format discussion episodes go, this is about as good as it could have been. I think we can let recency bias take hold yet again.
You want to put anyone of a second?
He's got to be one of the big three, right? Like, how's Crimzo number 3? Come on.
First Crimzo one was really good.
I feel like the Gumber episodes were better than the Crimzo episodes. We should
you would
change
think that. You would think that.
And I feel like the fact that the first Gator episode is 5 when that's that made our career, that's fucked up, actually.
You guys have to do like a tier list of past episodes. When you get to like a special, like the 50 episode special, you have to like do a realistic list of all the episodes.
You know what the next episode's going to be, Cass? Should we announce it, or are you scared to announce it in case we don't follow through with it?
Well, I think we're 100% going to try and do it. So we should phrase it as we're 100% going to try and do our first ever
in person in Saudi.
Live Uncoachable.
Super episode. We don't know who the guest or guests.
You guys have been talking about getting Krusty on for like the past 20 episodes.
I mean, Krusty said that he'll do it, to be fair. Krusty says he'll do it. So maybe after Saudi, or I feel like the problem is with Saudi is I think no coach is going to want to sit down for 3 hours while at the event to do the podcast. So I feel like what we need to do is cycle guests, like get like 1 or 2 of them on for 30 minutes, talk shit, and then cycle them on and do the next one. But
I can see that. That would be good.
But there is going to be a production element that we may or may not be qualified to deal with.
If you are going to the Esports World Cup and you happen to be a producer of a podcast, please reach out immediately because there might be a gig for you.
Unpaid, of course.
Would you like a free t-shirt? Because all you have to do is produce 1 episode And that free t-shirt is yours. So what was our... Did we have a conclusion?
I think it goes below Casores 1. That's what I think. I think it has to be. But I'm trying to deflate the economy, you know? As they put it.
Because Astros is so low, actually, right?
That suits Astro.
A rack attacks is so high.
Rack attack's too high for you?
I think the previous Cass episode was definitely better. But we can't put Cass below Danny under any circumstance. So
That's true. That would be.
I think putting him above Danny makes sense in terms of the coaching hierarchy.
Yeah.
And also just the general context of where this episode sits relative to his assistant coach and to himself. Relative to the other episodes, I'm not too sure. But let's try and reframe it.
Just stick it somewhere between above Astro and then
above Astro.
Not done.
There's a nice amount of symmetry here as well with Astro in some.
Has anyone's second episodes beaten their first episode?
Casores and Danny sandwich.
Danny's has only Danny.
But most people, this round 2 never beats round 1. I see.
Yeah, obviously Goombas both were top 4, which seems good.
We need to get Goomba back on.
One last ride.
We'll get Mr. X on. All right.
Wait. We have to also thank our loyal Patreons. And it's only the usual candidate, Johnny Reinforce.
Oh.
Membership still going strong.
Thank you, Johnny. Somehow our biggest fan, our longest standing fan, all our other $50 bailed out at the first opportunity.
Well, not to put a doomer on it, but I think this will also be Johnny's potential last episode at this tier.
He didn't turn off his resub, did he?
He's reached a breaking point. There was obviously something in the Backbone episode that just pushed him off the edge, pushed him
I always loved Plat Chat. I always said good things.
Oh, like I was saying, Plat Chat's the better podcast. Please give us
so much better.
Oh, the resub's back.
Oh,
we're coming back for another month.
Thanks for the support, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny.
We're going to miss you, man.
We will.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Cass. And we'll see everyone in the next one.
Cheers.
GG.